The Gods of Eden, Part 4. You are listening to Brothers of the Serpent Podcast.
And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, angels and demons and monsters and serpents, to Brothers of the Serpent Podcast, coming to you not live from the 10 by 10 by 10 tangent cube of science, nestled amongst the dusty bones of an ancient seabed, high atop the Edwards Plateau. This is, like Laura said, part 4 of an unknown length of series. I don't know how many parts it's going to be, but we're not even halfway through the book yet, so... But yeah, we're deep in the deep dive into William Bramley's The Gods of Eden. And last week he was looking at the Revelation of St. John, right? Mm-hmm. So we have a lot to talk about with that. Before we get back into the book, I talked to David Matheson about some of the constellation stuff and the star myth ideas, so we'll talk about that later. And Laura, did you have more questions from the last show? Because you said you went through it again?
I did go through it again, but I didn't take notes with questions this time. I think...
That's fine. That's fine.
If I come up with one, I'll pop it in, but I don't have any right now off the top of my head.
That's cool. And we got a one-up box. That's a big one.
Yeah.
Biggest one yet.
Biggest one yet, yeah. And as always, we're joined by our good friend Ant Longhead, the Watcher from deep beneath his secret space station in secret outer space, with his much improved microphone, no longer in his tin can bag of chips. Watcher, how you doing, buddy?
Doing all right. I'm tempted to get a tin can and actually hold it up to my face and try to talk through it to see how accurate it was now that I have a good mic.
I think it would probably...
Yeah,
well,
you could do that for effect. You know? Like, hey guys, how you doing out there?
See, to me that sounds more spacey though, right? Like if I'm in outer space, that's what I should sound like.
Right, and you need the beep at the end of each broadcast, right? You're like, hey guys.
Yes. I'm gonna have to get the beep.
Yeah.
That's a thing.
May sound spacey, but it doesn't sound space aged.
That's true. I wonder what space transmissions actually sound like right now. Like, are they really good?
I bet they are.
Or are they still like...
I mean, it's obvious that if you get a spaceman a better mic, he sounds better.
Right.
Yeah.
It's not about...
We've known that. We've done that.
Yeah, we have figured this out. Maybe we're ahead of NASA on this one.
Maybe.
Yeah.
And we're done playing musical chairs with my equipment over
I
here.
finally got it figured out.
Yeah.
I'm all set.
That's right. I mean, we could still hear you on the first segment of the last one. I feel like we should have given an explanation at the beginning of the show, though, because people just had to listen to the whole first segment going, is it going to be like this the whole time? And then they get to the second segment and it's like awesome, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah. But still, yep, we're working it out.
But I didn't try to say anything too important when they couldn't hear me that great. So.
That's true. Yeah. I mean, you said a lot of good stuff, but yeah, we didn't really.
Yeah, but when you could really hear me is when I really tried to tell everybody how my mind was blown about rituals, and that was what was important.
Yeah, and we have some responses to that in email this week.
Oh, about rituals?
Yeah, and people talking about the stuff you said.
Okay.
So yeah, are we gonna do that first?
Hey, let's do it.
All right. Well, first let's go ahead and do.
Oh
I could have sworn it was
How
going to work.
does it sound?
All right, 0 edits.
The Space Weather News. Yeah, from spaceweather.com, where we get all our space weather news. Another new cycle sunspot. All right, so we have another sunspot in a continuing show of strength from Solar Cycle 25. Another new cycle sunspot appeared on the sun today, provisionally numbered AR2762. It is located at high latitude in the sun's northern hemisphere. Amateur astronomers with safely filtered solar telescopes are encouraged to monitor developments. Also, a Comet Swan update. Comet Swan, or C2020 F8, is brightening rapidly. It seems to have increased in brightness dramatically since it was last observed a few nights ago. Multiple observers have now pegged the comet at magnitude plus 5.5, which is just within range of human visibility. So it's real close. At the moment, naked eyes can see the comet only as a dim fuzzball. A harmless, lovable fuzzball. But even small telescopes reveal much more. Gerald Renman sends a picture from Farm Tivoli in Namibia. Yeah, there's a beautiful picture of it right there.
Oh, man, that's nice.
So you guys can go to spaceweather.com and find that.
Green fuzzball.
Yeah. So 30-minute exposure through a 12-inch astrograph, says Remen, who also made a magnificent animation of the comet. In only about 40 minutes of tracking, it is possible to see complicated waves and tendrils of gas rippling down the comet's tail. A deep exposure made by John Drummond highlights jets emerging from the comet's core. Man, that's really cool. The comet's tail is so long, Remen could not fit it in the field of view. The tail, in my photo, he says, is 1.2 degrees long. I know from friends who have photographed wider fields that it actually stretches about 8 degrees across the sky. For comparison, the bowl of the Big Dipper is 10 degrees wide. Wow.
Wow.
Much about Comet Swan remains unknown. It was discovered just a few weeks ago on April 11th when a sudden hydrogen dump by the comet made it show up in data from the Solar and Heliospheric Observatory's Swan instruments. Think about that.
That's crazy. Just like a week ago.
Yeah, it's coming closer and closer, and then one, a puff of dust comes out, or a jet of gas comes out, and then they suddenly can see it. But it was creeping up that whole time.
Oh.
That's crazy, man.
Dude.
Whoa.
The comet sort of appeared out of nowhere, says Carl Batams of the Naval Research Lab in Washington, D.C. What made it flare up? I worry that something unpleasant happened to it, and now it's releasing and possibly exhausting all of its fresh volatiles. If so, it could fizzle or even fall apart like its cousin, Comet Atlas, recently did. However, says Batams, Comet Swan seems to be holding together better than Comet Atlas, so there is hope. Comet Swan's orbit suggests that it might be a first-time visitor to the inner solar system. That's interesting. Such newcomers are notoriously unpredictable, and no one can say for sure what will happen next. So, stay tuned. First time. So either it was perturbed out of a Oort cloud or Kuiper Belt orbit, or it's an extrasolar object.
Yeah, in Atlas, there was debate about whether or not it was a first-timer because it seemed to be on the same orbital path as an older comet.
Yeah.
But it had volatiles made it look like it was new to the sun.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's what this one's doing as well. Yeah, that's interesting. So if the object has never come in close to the sun before, like Halley's has come in multiple times, right? So it's we know that it has the ability to sort of withstand the passage.
Okay.
But these objects that maybe have never passed into the inner solar system before, they can just completely disintegrate once they start getting warm. So interesting stuff.
Yeah.
What did the watcher say? Just listen to a ham radio operator contacting the ISS. Audio was super clear and easy to understand. Wait, ham radio people can talk to the ISS?
That's cool.
We have to get one of those. We could get them on the podcast.
Oh man, I was thinking we prank call them. What is the exchange rate for U.S. dollars to Starbucks?
Oh my gosh, I remember that one.
The classic Starbucks prank call.
Yeah.
Was that you or Ty?
That's me, man.
Okay.
We don't have our own money.
I mean, Ty used it. We all used it
okay.
on multiple different Starbucks
But
all over the country.
You started it.
Yeah.
Okay.
the best response was that girl. We don't have our own money.
Yeah.
That was the best response to that. I totally took you seriously.
The New York Starbucks guys would just hang up on you immediately.
Yeah. Like, we don't have time for this.
Yeah.
We call them at 4 a.m.
Right,
some
they're
Starbucks in Manhattan.
Yeah.
24 hours.
Yeah. Yeah, they don't have time for that. And you're like, I got to get to Uranus fast.
Yeah, that's right. That was Ty's. I've got to get to Uranus fast.
Click.
That's when they started hanging up on us.
Current conditions, by the way, solar wind speed, a low 299.1 kilometers per second, and the density is also a low to medium low, 4.1 protons per cubic centimeter. I say medium and low on these numbers, but I wonder what they're going to be like during a maximum. We'll have to.
Oh, yeah.
I may have to completely readjust my idea of what's high. But we've only been doing space weather news during the minimum. The minimum, the podcast has basically been during the minimum. So,
well, we can illustrate, these cyclical processes and how it can appear to you to be like, oh my God, we're all gonna die.
When's it gonna change? How much longer?
Well, the cycle's 11 years one way to the other, right?
Oh.
So we're in the lowest. It'll be 11 years before the highest.
Yeah.
This podcast is gonna be going for 11 years for sure.
It's a 22-year full cycle.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Maybe
So
Soul
once-
will be in here running the podcast at that point.
Still, we're at 75% of 2020 of the days in 2020 as spotless days. 75%.
Wow.
Yeah. So, all right. Emails or articles?
I don't know.
Emails.
Emails.
She makes the call. She's already calling the shots in here.
Call the shots, babe.
That's okay.
All right. First one is from Melanie called Ritual and One-Ups. A Snentleman and Slady. Listening to episode 144 and Laura's thoughts on Ritual made me think of a podcast episode I recently listened to on my second favorite show called Probably Science.
Ooh.
Probably Science. I highly recommend it regardless of the fact that they tend to hold strongly to standard models. So they were interviewing comedian Shane Mouse on their episode 310, where he describes his attempt to push his consciousness over the edge with all the mind-altering drugs he could get his hands on. This resulted in him basically going crazy for a while. Anyway, his description of needing to hang desperately to rituals and the spiraling down he experienced reminded me in extreme of what Laura was talking about. Pretty crazy and hard to listen to, but also fascinating. I recommend you check out Probably Science, as well as that particular episode. As we say here, going into week 6, what else are you going to do? Also, I had promised a one-up box for you guys a while ago, and then life got in the way. But I'm almost finished with what will go into said one-up box. And I had a question. Does Laura and your mom have pierced ears, and what are their favorite colors?
This is exciting. I have pierced ears. So does Sunny, your mom.
Yeah.
Favorite color? I like it all. I really do.
Yeah. So
You
opal.
pick.
What about mom?
I don't know. I guess green and orange from Miami colors. I don't really know.
Okay, that's
Yeah,
a good
well.
idea.
She likes sunny, beachy things.
Right.
That's a good point.
Yeah,
But
she likes
see,
pastels.
I like people to pick things for me. When I go to restaurants, I'll just let the waitress, I whatever, bring it to me. So you choose, and then
Yeah.
I'll love it more.
There you go. Mom's like that too. She doesn't really, I don't know if she has like what I would say is a favorite color noticeably. So,
I'm just sitting here thinking about the fact that basically she's giving me a birthday present right now.
Yeah, that's
Oh,
right. It
it's
is her
Laura's
birthday.
birthday.
Yeah, that's right.
Yay!
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Thank you.
Yeah, so we've all three of us have happened to have our birthdays on podcast days this year,
Yeah.
which is weird. Or wait, I wasn't this year, but my last birthday
Within
was on
a year,
Yeah. Okay, so she says, by the way, tried to send you a message on your
She
podcast.
should get green and orange hurricanes, is what Brett says.
Green and orange hurricanes. By the way, I tried to send you a message on your podcast website about your episode with your folks, but obviously failed in my attempts. Just know I too homeschooled, actually unschooled my son, and hearing your memories brought my own memories to the surface. Thanks for that. It can be such an amazing experience to explore the world together and watch your child become a lifelong learner. I just wish everyone can experience that and the world would be a better place. Your devoted fan, Melanie.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
That
And
is
thank
really
you for my
cool.
birthday present. I look forward to it. Great email. Love you.
She's calling it a birthday present. Yeah.
That's what
you
it
better
is.
come through, Melanie. Holy crap.
She knew. She knew.
Yeah, she knows.
She knows everything.
All right, this one's from Russell called Fat Buddha is Not the Buddha.
Yeah.
Hi
I'm
there,
past the fat Buddha thing.
Hi there, Snake Bros and girls. First off, snakes!
Yay.
Secondly, I'm really digging the Gods of Eden sods. I've been a fan of the ancient alien theory since listening to Art Bell late at night while cleaning offices for my family's janitorial business. Guess you're a master of the custodial arts. Hey. It's nice to hear you guys tackling the subject. I wasn't aware of the whole Brotherhood of the Serpent thing until I heard it on your podcast. Thanks to you guys, I have a new rabbit hole to jump down. Yay! A great book, too. It's fascinating to hear how all this history fits into place and how blatantly obvious the ancient astronaut theory could have started much of what we take for granted as myths and far-fetched religious tales of our modern-day faiths. Speaking of faiths, I remember in part 2, you three were mentioning that Buddha was a fatty and needed to get on the treadmill because his spiritual exercises were not working to shed that huge Buddha belly. Although I do believe he needs to lay off the white rice and carbs, this jolly fellow isn't actually the Buddha, as many Westerners often assume he is. He's actually a 10th century Chinese monk by the name of Budai. According to accounts, Budai was a gregarious, pot-bellied monk who wandered from village to village, carrying a large sack over his shoulder. Budai means cloth sack in Chinese.
Sounds like Santa Claus.
Yeah, he was beloved by children and the poor, whom he would give rice and sweets to from his sack. Just thought you guys might find that interesting. Once again, great job on the podcast. The Gods of Eden episodes are the snake-tacular. Sincerely, Russ.
Thank you.
That's great, man.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Very good.
Budai, not Buddha. Still fat, though.
A jolly fellow.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, Buddha. I need to get a little Buddha for my room.
Yeah. I have a I don't know, it's a dark red, like a lacquered, very dark red color. A little Buddha guy that sits up on one of my bookshelves. I love it.
A Budai guy.
Budai. Yeah. He's a Buddha.
Okay.
He's got the giant bead necklace. I love that part too. There's huge, massive beads around his neck. Like, who would wear that, dude? It's this humongous spheres. All right, so this one is from Brian, called A Most Excellent Podcast Exploring Bogus Historical Thoughts. So that when I first saw that title, I was like, uh-oh, this one worries me. But he says, hey, Snake Bros, yes, you have done it. You have found the thought pattern of my brain and brought to light the discussions that have been relegated to the lonely voice within my ignorant cranium. So stoked.
I love that.
Yet another Joe Rogan convert here. He turned me on to Graham Hancock, which in turn required more room on my bookshelf and less in my brain. That led to Randall Carlson, which turned up minimal podcast options, and then wait for it, boom, into the snake pit. And then Cosmographia. And now I have randomly been devouring your catalog and waiting for weekly updates. I love this path that so many people are like Joe Rogan, Graham Hancock, to Randall Carlson, to Snake Bros.
Oh, okay.
It's a path that a lot of people have
Wow,
taken.
okay,
Yeah.
I didn't know that. That's
freaking
interesting.
awesome.
Yeah. As a solo entrepreneur operating a wood shop in the remote Uinta Basin in northeastern Utah. Okay, the Uinta Basin I have been fascinated with for a long time. What's his name? He also does Coast to Coast. God dang it, what's his
George
name?
Norrie?
Not Norrie.
No.
It's the other George. George. It's the other one.
Come on, watch
Watcher.
it. He'll figure it out. Let's go.
Yeah. He is fascinated with the Uinta Basin. That's where the there's a lot of very weird legends there. That's where the Skinwalker Ranch is. So, yeah, the Uinta Basin is an interesting place. He says, I listen to podcasts constantly. My favorite ones tend to be the type like yours and Joe Rogan Experience that make you feel like you're in a room with good friends bullshitting about the oddities of life. Well done. You have bumped Joe to third on my playlist. But seriously, we are all brothers of the serpent trying to slowly warm up in the sun as we slither forward from a recent ice age and piece together the forgotten knowledge of our ancestors. Glad to have found this brotherhood and look forward to doing my part. Keep up the most excellent work, for the only true knowledge is knowing that we know nothing. I am working on a one-up box for you. It will be wood, not stone, as that is my medium. Yes. I am stuck in the wood age.
Yes.
Sorry. By the way, recently visited an obsidian site here in Utah and collected many pieces from a quarry that has been in use for thousands of years. Awesome to touch stones that may have been handled by those that barely survived a serpent in the sky. You're a snake bro in Utah, Brian.
Man.
That email was a little work of art.
That was
Yeah.
great.
Wow.
And it's,
Really
it's
good.
George Knapp.
Nap.
Thank you, Watcher.
That's right. Thank you, Watcher.
Man, that's awesome. Hey, I like
the
messing around
woodworks.
with wood too. I
Stuck
make
in the
little
wood
carvings
age.
and do stuff with wood. It's
Yeah.
cool. Love it.
Yeah, can't wait to see it. Yeah. Oh, I should say, for anyone interested, Hill Creek Woodshop is the name of his business. So check him out, hillcreekwoodshop.com for anybody who
Awesome.
wants to check him out.
Hey, have we ever found out if Joe Rogan actually listens to this podcast?
I doubt it. Very seriously.
That was
so.
doom and gloom, Russ.
I very seriously doubt that he's ever.
All right.
No one's ever found that out.
Right.
Does that answer your question?
Well, if
right.
anyone ever finds it out, can we know about it?
Maybe he'll email us.
Okay.
All right.
That would be cool.
That would be cool. Okay, this is from Roddy the Mammal. On achieving serpenthood. He says, Dear Ophidian siblings, I have heard your request that I should shed my furry pelt and join the ranks of serpenthood. And while I understand and respect your request, I am afraid that certain evolutionary restrictions preclude me from making such alterations to my aforementioned pelt.
Oh.
I have heard through back channels and certain dark websites that transgenous operations are available, but the cost is prohibitive. And I can, at best, achieve a result of like a hairless synapsid, long in body and short in limb length, close but no cigar. Besides, such an operation would totally alienate my wife, who is already upset at my lack of shaving, especially those hard-to-reach places on my back. I am afraid that the best I can offer is to wear a brightly colored hoodie with the hood up and self-identify as a cobra. Please let me know if this is acceptable to the Brotherhood. Oh. Thank you in advance, Roddy the Mammal.
Welcome home.
Yeah, I think we'll take that.
Totally acceptable.
I think well take that.
Completely acceptable. I love this guy's emails.
The furry mammal. The furry cobra.
That's right. He's got warm and fuzzies beneath his scales, right? Come on, guy.
That's good. That's good.
Okay, let's see. This is from Sab. Sound healing for Kyle. Hi, guys. I just wanted to share this with you in case Kyle had some time to read it. Uh-oh. You might have to read something, Kyle.
Oh, my God.
I thought it might be of interest to him to read the small part regarding Western musical scales if he hasn't already heard this knowledge. Apparently, they attempt to keep us boxed in. Another point of interest, notwithstanding the technology itself, is that the guy said to have rediscovered these frequencies found them in the Book of Numbers, adding yet more weight to the theory of multi-layered, highly advanced messages in ancient scripture. Maybe worth asking the pit to birth a new snake term for this phenomena. I have no imagination, sorry, so the best I can do is MLHA or Hamel, etc., which is, I don't know what that stands for.
Those are maybe the notes of the scale.
HAML, MLHA, yeah, I don't know. He says, I hope you guys are well and the extended snakes family globally, also managing the current situation. Cheers, Sab. So it's this is a... What are the solfeggio?
Like the circle of fifths or something?
Frequencies, yeah. So he sends this.
Okay, yeah, I'll check it out.
Yeah.
Always interested in that kind of stuff.
Vibration is everything. Binaural beats.
Sound healing? I want to know more.
Oh, yeah. Binaural beats, yeah.
Yeah.
Binaural beats.
So I'll forward that to Kyle Sapp. Sorry, I should have done that before. Okay, this guy's name is Chris, but I like his email. The Curvillian is part of his email address. It says, hello from Galveston. Dear Snake Bros and Slither Sister.
Hi.
I wish I could have said hello when I still lived in Kerrville, but I left there in 2015. I ran across Randall Carlson and then wandered into Cosmographia. I was hearing about the Brothers of the Serpent, but then you mentioned Kerrville and my ears perked up. I then went to your podcast and I'm now listening to more and more of it. Along the way, I listened to the podcast where you and your snake parents related the family history. I suppose it's too late to ask for your parents to adopt me and raise me as a snake brother since I'm closer to their age than yours. I love the topics and the podcast, even if I must be a long-lost wannabe sibling. I drop in on the Discord where I am Chris in Galveston. If you are getting out to my part of the state, supposing they ever let us out of lockdown, look me up and I'll spring for something to eat. Chris.
Oh, that's cool.
Man, thank you, bro.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're, the snake family is getting bigger. No problem there. You don't have to be a wannabe sibling. all snakes in the fam. I love that. Curvillian.
Yeah, I like that too.
Address. And yeah, I've seen you in the Discord, Chris. So that's great. Let's see. And he also joined the Patreon. So thanks so much for that.
Oh,
buddy.
Man, thanks.
Yeah, I really appreciate that. Yeah, we have another one from Kevin. It's called Snake Wife. Snake Wife Sitting In, I think is the title.
Oh, yay.
Yeah. Snake Bros. I wanted to send a quick note to compliment Laura and yourselves. She has been an excellent addition to the show, and congratulations on seeing fit to allow her in the Tangent Cube. Her insights and thoughts add to the vibe of the show being a conversation among friends. Thanks for the brain-expanding content. Please continue to blow our minds. I have a phrase to describe my tendency to listen to a segment of the podcast as I get ready for work in the morning. Wake and snake.
Yes.
I love
Put that in your pipe and smoke it. Later, boys and girl. P.S. As a single snake bro, I can't help but wonder if Laura has a single serpentine sister.
Well, if you must know, I actually used to be a hardcore matchmaker.
Yep.
But I have given that up. So I'll think about it.
I mean, since you asked.
Hey, that's different.
Yeah.
But thank you so much for your kind words. Really, the whole Snake Force is just super awesome, and I feel so loved.
Yeah, you guys and gals out there.
I mean, I'm heavily editing the emails, guys.
Oh, okay.
No. I'm reading the awesome ones, okay?
No.
But nobody has talked crap. The other ones are just I can't read them. They don't make sense usually.
Yeah.
I read it and I'm like, what is happening? Okay, this one's from Andrew, called One Question. Snakes seem to agree that this highly advanced civilization was destroyed, and only a few of them were able to join some remaining bands of butt flappers. If I lived in a society with 0-point energy and a religious system that was worth a damn, you know what I would do? I'd run around in a butt flap with my buddies and hunt some big animals and drink beer.
That's a good point.
So is it possible that the butt flaps are the goal we are working towards and we just don't know it yet? Just a thought. Loving the gods of Eden, and hey, Laura, Drew.
Hey, Drew.
That's a really
idea.
interesting
Yeah, good point.
prospect.
It is. I've read this multiple times and thought about it, and it's hard to say because we don't know what the goal is. I agree with that. We don't know what the goal is. But, I do understand that with society as it is right now, with how things are, a lot of people think that a better goal is to just go back to butt flaps. But that doesn't necessarily mean that that's what you would do if you had a good society that had a proper all these things. But right now, people think let's get out. Well, a lot of people think I want to escape this really screwed up system and go back to something more simple. But maybe if the system wasn't screwed up, then that wouldn't be the desire. I don't know.
Right, but I'm sort of I've read a lot of and talked to a lot of people that have sort of a rosy picture of the past.
Yeah,
you know, we're all one with nature, and it was a lot more, wholesome or something like that. And I don't think that's what it was. Mm-mm. And even if we're talking about quote unquote butt flappers, going around, being at one with nature, that's very hard. And but looking at a possible ancient advanced civilization, I don't think that they had it all figured out and that everything was great.
Right.
Just because they were advanced doesn't necessarily mean they had all of the, I don't know what types of problems. I mean, just societal problems and things like that. I mean,
well, we talked about them. Sorry, go ahead.
What?
We had a long time ago. We were talking about the Pillars of Enoch, and the idea that civilization itself and society and culture is this big machine. It's not a machine, but you can liken it to a machine. And right now the machine's broken, and so there's a bunch of parts that do a lot of damage. Right. In other words, the analogy was made that if you didn't know what a machine was for, and you were trying to operate it, that's really dangerous. Right. So we have this machine and it's running, and either the people who are involved in running it don't know really how it works or supposed to, or they do and they're running it improperly on purpose or whatever. Either way, it's dangerous. So you go out into the machine and you get crushed. Right. Yeah. It just happens. So maybe if there was like Bramley talks about, Heinlein used to talk about this, having a proper science of ethics, science of psychology, things like that would make the machine run smoother, or where we can understand what the machine really was for.
Okay.
And if the humans are parts of the machine, then you don't look at like modern society looks at certain types of people as broken parts.
Right. But maybe they have a place.
Maybe they have a place in the machine.
Yeah.
It's
that would be good for them to do, and they wouldn't
actually make the whole
right. They would no longer be a broken part that's dangerous. Yeah. But if you're just this part is broken, and then you have to get it out of the way, and then it just sits there being dangerous.
Yeah.
And then and then people that haven't been found, those quote unquote broken parts that haven't been found, are going around doing damage because they don't have a place.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. I was just gonna say that. Being at one with nature, running around in these butt flaps, that still takes so many. I guess it's a generational thing to be at one with nature and be killing bears and skinning them and stuff. It's that knowledge has to be passed down from their parents and their for everybody to keep surviving.
Especially if you have to do it to survive. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think being one with nature, to me, like the whole being one with nature really, like not how people say it, what they mean when they say it now is not what I think it really is, which is that being one with nature is more about like now you're in the food chain. You're in the food chain. Because what is nature but a gigantic system of everything eating everything else all the time?
Yeah.
So if you're at one with it, then that means you're in the food chain. And so you spend most of your time either trying to eat stuff or trying not to be eaten, just like everything else in nature.
Yeah.
That's really the main thing that happens in nature. If you at any scale you look at
serious mating.
Yeah, and trying to procreate.
That's right. Right. Yeah.
Three parts to the.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah, that's the other one. Yeah.
I
Which is just making more things to eat, basically.
That's right.
I'm thinking about the mating because when we were in Hondo and I was in the pool with Sol while you guys were working in the vineyard or in the orchard. There was 2 dragonflies mating,
Yeah.
And he's like, "What are they doing?" And I said, "Well,
Making
they're
more dragonflies.
mating." I was like, "What should I say
Making more
here? What else should I go?" I said, "They're mating."
Yeah.
I said, "Do you know what mating means?" "No." "That's how they make a baby." "Okay."
Yeah. They're
Next
making-
lesson. Let's do. I moved on.
There's not enough dragonflies to eat, so they're making more.
Yeah. I just figured if we left it there with mating, and then maybe next year I could add a little bit more to it, and the next year I could add a little bit more.
Right. But Drew, going back to your original point again, you said if we had a proper religious system
And 0-point energy, and just like if all of our energy problems and survival problems were solved, then we could just run around in butt flaps.
Yeah, but if we had a proper religious system, to me, that's the huge wild card because we have no idea what that would look like. Like, what would a proper spiritual system tell you to do with your life? Well,
That's true.
so we have almost no idea. So,
And how would we even know that that was proper?
Exactly.
Yeah, if it was somehow testable.
Okay, yeah, like if we have this science.
Like what? Yeah,
Okay,
like
okay.
what Heinlein would talk about, in Bramley, like this idea of a test, like what the Egyptians appear to have been trying to do, which is like, can we figure out in some way, in a testable way, a studyable way, what we're supposed to do with life?
I see what you're saying.
And so they come up with this what looks to me like a platform game for afterlife, right? You have to do all these weird things and solve weird problems, and it's like a quest that happens after you die, if we're reading it right in the first place.
Yeah.
Right. But the point is like if we had some kind of proper understanding of that, who knows what that would result in societally.
I hope that we can be alive when it happens.
Okay, so this is from Ian. He says, "Big thanks. No need to read this if you're stacked with emails," which we are, but I want to read it anyway. He says, "But feel free if you'd like to. I wanted to say thanks for playing the track of Kyle's that I requested the other week. It was actually my birthday the day that I finished off that episode in my car, and the track came on at the end.
All right.
I'd
late
kind of
birthday.
forgotten that I'd asked you guys to play it in full, and it kicked off a really awesome birthday.
Wow.
Man, it sounded great in full. Really beautiful tune. Thanks."
Man, thanks, buddy. And you're welcome and happy birthday.
Yeah. And he says, "I have currently got a subscription for Gaia TV. Looks like it's going to be good. Gonna have to sift through it a bit, but I have started on a series called Ancient Civilizations. It's pretty damn cool. Well thought out and well structured so far with the likes of your man, Mr. Bramley, Mr. Graham Hancock, Michael Cremo, all chipping in with some great commentary. Don't watch much TV in general, but with the lockdown still on, it's a good source for snaking away a few hours here and there. Peace and snacks."
Yeah, man, I've looked into that. We probably ought to
What is
subscribe to it. It's a subscriber thing that you can, a subscription thing that has like a bunch of shows, kind of like Ancient Aliens, but Ancient Civilizations, all that,
Okay.
with a lot of these guys that are in the field looking into this stuff. So
Yeah.
it's cool.
Yeah, we
Looked
should
really
do it.
good. Looked really well produced too.
All right, from Brendan. It's called Nothing Here and There. He says, "My dear denizens of the Tangent Cube, I smell a possible debate coming on. Russ, I fear you confuse what I say about nothing or the void with something and or a state, and then add meaning. That's what you always say, bro. Every time we have this argument. What I am talking about is not a state, a perception, or even an awareness. Meaning matters because it is meaningful. The truth of meaning has no meaning. Like life has no meaning. Nihilists make this a bad thing, which is full of meaning. They are idiots, which is also meaning, which is not nothing but something. I'm glad I could clear that up. Kyle thinks that if he is nothing, he will be a pointless zombie. He is incorrect. I hear you when you say that if you become conscious of nothing, then what's the point of asking the question? The truth is there is no reason to ask, and there is also no reason not to ask. I appreciate that you brought up the part about becoming conscious and then having an enhanced experience of life. This is true. After achieving this realization, life has in fact become more fascinating, more rich, and I feel I can create new awareness that allows me greater capacity and not less. See, this is full of positive meaning. Russ, I am still not a nihilist because there is nothing here. Down with the nothingness people. Keep up the great work on the show, Brendan.
He keeps having the same conversation with you because nothing's real, and so he's like, well, that conversation wasn't real. So he has it again.
Well, I'm just saying, like, this is very well written.
Good job, Brendan.
But it's the same stuff we've argued about for years on this, you know. He's like, he says, you're taking what I'm saying and giving it meaning. And I'm like, no. What you said had meaning because you said it in the first place. Otherwise, if it had no meaning, it would convey no meaning to me, and then I would not be able to do anything with it. So don't blame me for adding meaning to it. You did that by even trying to talk to me about it in the first place. But it doesn't matter to you because nothing means anything, right?
Here's what we need to do. Instead of the elections for the president, we just need to get you and Brendan on stage. While we're all still in quarantine for the last couple of days.
Oh,
we can
man.
just watch you guys.
No. I mean, we've had these debates when people are around and people slowly start walking away.
Oh, okay. I thought they would be entertaining.
No, it's not entertaining.
I thought it was funny.
Anyway, Brendan, the point is, we still love you.
Yeah, but he doesn't care.
I don't get it. I'll admit it. I don't get it.
I like this part. When he says, I hear you when you say that if you become conscious of nothing, then what's the point of asking the question? And he says, the truth is there is no reason to ask, and there is also no reason not to ask. That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But if you have a reason to ask, then I mean, if you're curious, that's a reason.
But it's not real. Your curiosity is not real. That's what I'm saying.
It's hard to wrap your head around. It really is. This whole nothingness is
to me,
tough.
it's really fun. The whole concept is fun because, like, no matter what he says when we're arguing about it, I just take it apart with its own point.
Yeah.
You know, he tries to do all this explaining, and I'm just like, dude, just why are we even talking about it? You just go right back to that. Like, you just made all this effort for what? Nothing's real. It doesn't matter.
No, this is a tough one.
Classic debate.
Yeah, and
it's the same debate that the universe had with itself when it was nothing and it decided to become something.
Yeah,
and
also his thing about how he's not a nihilist because nihilism is something. That's also a hilarious thing that we've gone back and forth on. I'm just like, yeah, nihilism is the word to define how you think. The people who think that there's nothing is real, right? That's I understand that that's adding a label and then trying to give meaning to something, but I'm just like labeling what you're telling me. You know? Yes, I do think that things have meaning, so I can give it a label.
And if we're going to talk, we're going to have to use words. I mean, we have to use language.
Yeah. Anyway, great email, Brendan. And thank you for sending it. I hope you keep listening to the show.
Yeah, but
nothing is real. It doesn't really matter if you do or not. All right, where are we at? I've completely lost track of time.
We never
We're
set
ready
the
to take a
timer.
break.
Okay. All right.
Snacks. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Snake Bros Institute for Advanced Copperlight Studies, where there are no degrees, but there are one-up boxes. And I've got one right here. Hey, look, I already cut the tape.
A big, long
He does this
pyramid.
because he's afraid that I'm going to slice myself.
I actually did it so that it was faster.
Okay. Well, It's a long triangle.
It is a long, elongated pyramid.
Wow, look at this.
Man, that is a serious...
Oh my god, there's like other stuff. Stickers. Holy crap, look at all this.
Oh my gosh.
What, dude?
Have you looked to see who it's from yet?
I know who it's from. He asked. He's the guy with the banner shop.
Chris Anderson.
Yeah, from Let's Go Banners, Chris Anderson. So there's a huge stack of stickers.
Whoa, dude.
And look at that.
And this huge banner that is like, what is this, vinyl?
All
It's a vinyl.
hail Chris Anderson.
Wow,
This
look
is
at this stuff,
awesome.
man.
Stickers.
2 banners?
Two banners.
2 banners.
And different size stickers, and they're
Oh, there's a
beautiful.
note.
Okay. All right.
Oh man.
This is really awesome. I was not expecting.
Good.
Okay, so I'm getting the tape off the inner banner. Kyle's getting tape off the outer banner.
Another birthday present for me. Woo!
The inner banner has writing on it, so I'm trying to get this tape off so I can read it. Oh, okay. There's actually a. This is actually there's.
Oh, I think so. The paper is it protecting it or something?
Yeah. Oh, look at a bunch of people put it.
Oh.
Okay. From
Snacks!
A lot of love from the Rainbow State. Is that Sammy?
Sammy.
Sammy is okay. Sammy Design, and then we have Aloha Marnie Sales from Marnie. She's got a sticker on there
It says snakes. Aloha. Chris.
from Chris, aka Vegas in the Snake Pit. All right, so this is Vegas in the
Hey.
Snake Pit. Hey, and look at the other side.
This
Holy,
is awesome.
Wow.
Wow.
that's so awesome.
We're gonna have to take a picture of this and post it.
Look at that.
This
Yes.
is
I have to
amazing.
stand up to that's I'm far away from the mic.
Yeah, we got stuff's falling down in here. It's going crazy, but it's great.
Whoa, a pyramid.
Whoa! Snakes! This is, oh look, there's people in this picture.
Oh my
Look
god,
at
that is awesome, dude.
This is amazing.
Okay, so the big banner is a beautiful picture of the Great Pyramid, and across the top it says snakes. And then it's got the Brothers of the Serpent logo in the upper left. Holy crap, that is
Man.
awesome.
And then a bunch
What
of
do you say? Is
stickers.
4 feet? 4 feet across?
This is great.
Hey, I wonder if it's the golden ratio. Let's see.
Man. So
Thank
we
you,
got
thank
one big
you.
banner that's black with the green logo on it, huge, and then we got this this other one with the pyramid. Man, this is really cool.
And
I mean,
now-
Watcher, did you see these? Were you able to see them in the camera?
Yes. Yes, they are awesome.
This pyramid banner is incredibly close, if not perfectly, the golden ratio.
Wow.
Because I have these sound dampening panels in here were made very close to the golden ratio,
Oh, right.
and this is almost exactly the size.
Wow. Dude, thank you so much. All of you guys.
esoteric stuff in this thing? Dude, thanks.
From Marnie, Sammy, and Chris. Guys, thank you so much. These are awesome.
These will have to travel with us when we go on the road.
Yeah, man. This is really cool.
When we do our snake rock shows.
And the stickers. We got 2 stacks of stickers, small ones and big ones.
Wow.
It's just like What was the name of it again? Banners. What was it?
Let's go banners, I think.
Let's Go Banners. People check it out. Great. That's
Beautiful.
Beautiful.
Beautiful work.
Beautiful work. Vinyl. Very,
Very nice.
very nice. Man.
Wow.
The 10
I'm
by 10 is
speechless.
running out of space.
I know.
We're going to get a storage unit and we're going to
Yeah.
move some of this stuff out and then these can go up.
Thank you so much. I don't even know what to say to that. It's just a beautiful, beautiful one-up box there. Thank you so much.
Man. Awesome.
That made my week.
Yeah, that's great. That's perfect.
Top. All right. So I have this article I've been wanting to read I've been wanting to read some stuff from the Cosmic Tusk. So this one from thecosmictusk.com. Infectious microbes inside cosmic dust collected from outside the surface of space station windows. Says this has been a big couple of years for UFOs. Polling suggests that 33%, hey, Laura, of Americans believe that mysterious, intelligent alien life forms have visited our humble planet in spacecraft. However, If you ask people if they believe that familiar microbial life forms, bacteria, viruses, diatomaceous plankton, tardigrades, and the like, are raining more or less constantly into the atmosphere from beyond, you will get blank stares from 100%. It is more widely believed that people are being probed in their bedrooms by extraterrestrials than little ETs by the trillions might waft through your open windows. This situation is particularly frustrating in light of stupefying recent evidence for the Hoyle and Wickramasinghe's theory of panspermia. 10 times in 5 years, Russian cosmonauts have swiped the outside of the ISS's windows and confirmed a thin veneer of biological scum. See the paper below from TV Gebenikova et al., who apparently had direct access to the sensitive cosmic materials. Yes, we have already found life in space, and it is indistinguishable from the well-known microbes that are ubiquitous in our environment and inhabit our bodies by the trillions. See also the second paper I posted. Okay, so on this actual article at the bottom, like a lot of George's articles, at the bottom are the actual PDFs of papers he's talking about. So you guys can go to the Cosmic Tusk and look these papers up. He says, that is Dr. Gebenikova with Dr. Chandra Wickramasinghe, who I pester you all about on a weekly basis. He is the guy who published 75 papers in Nature with Sir Fred Hoyle in the 70s and 80s, predicting that evidence for ubiquitous microbes in cosmic dust would ultimately be found. The second paper, including Wickramasinghe, is more freewheeling, but co-authored with the Russian researchers with direct access to the materials. This recent discovery and confirmation of microbial life in space is so shocking and self-evident, timid theorists can only attribute to the little buggers a previously unidentified ability to lift themselves from the ocean 400 kilometers into space to explain their discovery, which begs an incorrect but also heretical question: why haven't we then long since seeded space with life? The idea that undiscovered mechanisms lift life into space is clearly an awkward effort to adhere to Aristotle's now dogmatic belief that all life emerged on Earth, a narcissistic proposition on par with his insistence that the sun revolves around the Earth. Poor science in the face of an inconvenient truth. But the published paper on the ISS results does leave open the correct alternative. Damn shame this sorry blog is the most attention the discovery has received. Reminds one of the relationship the Wright brothers had with gleanings in bee culture. So, really good stuff there. I do like the idea. He's like, hey, if they can leave the Earth and go 400 kilometers up and end up on the space station and still be alive, then
we're
seeding space.
Yep. Then
what's the difference?
Right. That's a great point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So thanks to George there from the Cosmic Tusk. Everybody should that should be a daily. That should be in everybody's feed for news, I think. The Cosmic Tusk is great place.
What's the name? The
Wickramasinghe.
Okay.
So we interviewed him on 141.
Okay.
Okay, now from blogs.scientificamerican.com, I'm going to read another article by our favorite skerptard, John Horgan. It's a great writer. And this was on February 28th of 2020. And this one is about Freeman Dyson. I mentioned this when I read...
the one about Fred Hoyle?
Yeah, the one about Fred Hoyle. So I'm going to read some... basically, I'm going to skip some of it, but here it is. Freeman Dyson was the leading practitioner of scientific theology. In his 1988 essay collection, Infinite in All Directions, Dyson speculated on why there is so much violence and hardship in the world. The answer, he suggested, might have something to do with what he called the principle of maximum diversity. This principle, he continued, operates at both the physical and mental level. It says that the laws of nature and the initial conditions are such as to make the universe as interesting as possible. As a result, life is possible, but not too easy. Always, when things are dull, something turns up to challenge us and to stop us from settling into a rut. Examples of things which made life difficult are all around us. Comet impacts, ice ages, weapons, plagues, nuclear fission, computers, sex, sin, and death. Not all challenges can be overcome, and so we have tragedy. Maximum diversity often leads to maximum stress. In the end, we survive, but only by the skin of our teeth.
Oh, Freeman.
So let's see. I'm going to skip forward here. So Dyson was provoked into taking up. Let's see. Dyson had spent his career swerving toward unknown lands. He veered from mathematics, his focus in college, to particle physics, and from there to solid-state physics, nuclear engineering, arms control, climate studies, and speculation about the long-term prospects of intelligence.
Yeah.
Dyson was provoked into taking up this final topic by physicist Steven Weinberg, who once remarked that the more the universe seems incomprehensible, the more it also seems pointless. No universe with intelligence is pointless, Dyson retorted in a 1979 paper in Reviews of Modern Physics. He sought to show that in an open, eternally expanding universe, intelligence could persist forever, perhaps in the form of a cloud of charged particles, through shrewd conservation of energy.
Yep.
Dyson did not think organic intelligence would soon give way to artificial intelligence. In Infinite in All Directions, his book, he speculated that genetic engineers might someday grow spacecraft about as big as a chicken and about as smart, which could flit on sunlight-powered wings through the solar system and beyond, acting as our scouts. Dyson called them astro chickens. Still more distant civilizations, perhaps concerned about dwindling energy supplies, could capture the radiation of stars by encasing them in energy-absorbing shells, now called Dyson spheres. Eventually, Dyson predicted intelligence might spread through the entire universe, transforming it into one great mind. But he insisted that no matter how far we go into the future, there will always be new things happening. New information coming in, new worlds to explore, a constantly expanding domain of life, consciousness, and memory. The quest for knowledge must be infinite in all directions. Dyson addressed the most important question raised by this prophecy. What will mind choose to do when it informs and controls the universe? The question, Dyson made clear, was theological rather than scientific. I do not make any clear distinction between mind and God. God is what mind becomes when it has passed beyond the scale of our comprehension. God may be considered to be either a world soul or a collection of world souls. We are the chief inlets of God on this planet at the present stage in his development. We may later grow with him as he grows, or we may be left. Ultimately, we cannot hope to answer the question of what this superbeing, this God, will do or think. Dyson admitted that his view of the future reflected wishful thinking. When I asked if science could keep evolving forever, he replied, I hope so. It's the kind of world I'd like to live in. If minds make the universe meaningful, they must have something to think about, so science must be eternal. The only way to think about this is historical, he explained. 2,000 years ago, some very bright people invented something that, while not science in the modern sense, was obviously its precursor. If you go into the future, what we call science won't be the same thing anymore. But that doesn't mean there won't be interesting questions.
Yeah.
Like physicist Roger Penrose, Dyson hoped that Gödel's theorem might apply to physics as well as mathematics. Since we know the laws of physics are mathematical, and we know that mathematics is an inconsistent system, it is sort of plausible that physics will also be inconsistent, and therefore open-ended. So I think these people who predict the end of physics may be right in the long run. Physics may become obsolete, but I would guess myself that physics might be considered something like Greek science. An interesting beginning, but it didn't really get them to the main point. So the end of physics may be the beginning of something else.
Yeah. It's great.
Yeah. When finally I asked Dyson about his maximum diversity idea, he shrugged. Oh, he didn't intend anyone to take that too seriously. He insisted that he was not really interested in the big picture, quote unquote. One of his favorite quotes, he said, is, God is in the details. But given his insistence that diversity is somehow essential, that wasn't his quote, sorry.
Right.
Given his insistence that diversity is somehow essential to existence, I asked, Didn't he find it disturbing that so many scientists and others seemed compelled to reduce everything to a single insight? Didn't such efforts represent a dangerous game? Yes, that's true in a way, Dyson replied with a small smile that suggested he found my interest in his little idea amusing. I never think of this as a deep philosophical belief, he added. It's simply, to me, just a poetic fancy. Dyson was maintaining an appropriate, ironic distance between himself and his ideas, but there was something disingenuous about his attitude. After all, throughout his own eclectic career, he seemed to be striving to adhere to the principle of maximum diversity. The 1984 book, The Limits of Science, by biologist Peter Medawar, consisted for the most part of regurgitating pauperisms. Medawar kept insisting, for example, that there is no limit upon the power of science to answer questions of the kind science can answer, as if this were a profound truth rather than a vacuous tautology. Medawar did offer some felicitous phrases, however. He concluded a section on bunk, by which he meant myths, superstitions, and other beliefs lacking in empirical basis, with the remark, "It is fun sometimes to be bunk-wrapped." Dyson was both brilliant and bunk-wrapped. He thought that global warming, on balance, might be beneficial, and he took extrasensory perception seriously.
Oh, God.
This guy is classic, dude. In a 2004 essay in the New York Review of Books, he proposed that paranormal phenomena are real, but lie outside the limits of science. No one has produced empirical proof of ESP, Dyson conjectured, because it tends to occur under conditions of strong emotion and stress, which are inherently incompatible with controlled scientific procedures, which is true.
Yep.
Dyson's vision of the far future is bunk-wrapped, too, and also one of the most profound bits of ironic science I have ever encountered. The principle of maximum diversity suggests that even if the cosmos was designed for us, we will never figure it out, and we will never create a blissful paradise in which all our problems are solved. No theory of everything, no heaven. Without hardship and suffering, without challenges from the war between the sexes to World War II and the Holocaust, life would be too boring. This is a chilling answer to the problem of evil, but I haven't found a better one.
Interesting.
Well, that last part was pretty philosophical and interesting, but good grief. and the first part was great. It was just that middle part. And I was just like, all right, bro.
Yeah.
You got...
I went and read some more of Dyson's, interviews with him about the stuff like global warming, climate change.
Yeah.
And he really goes into these interesting things about climate change. Like, well, if this all happened, we would probably just build all this other kind of cool stuff that would change everything.
Right.
It's like really cool the way he talked about how it would change technology. And, so this is one of the things that, somewhat, Feynman asked these questions about physics, the future of physics. Will we run out of questions? The idea that we could figure it all out and then everything will be boring after that. Or it will be so ridiculously detailed that every new discovery will be so minute
that it won't
and almost meaningless that it won't be any fun anymore.
Right.
And so I like Dyson's perspective on that. No. Physics could very well become obsolete, but that would mean that we're going to be learning all this new stuff.
Right.
What would be called science will be this brand new thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That we'll be making leaps and bounds and discoveries in, ESP and intelligence and all that kind of stuff. So I really like his sort of outside the box thinking. And this guy, this writer, thinks it's absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah. Well, one thing's for sure. It's got to be a Dyson disc.
Because it's got to be flat.
Yeah. Can't be a freaking sphere. I remember looking at the concept of a Dyson sphere, and the idea was if you took all the mass in the solar system aside from the sun, right? Everything, all the comets, all the planets, all the asteroids, and let's say you had total conversion technology, meaning you could take any material and convert it into something else, right? Without loss by, it's a
Loss of mass.
Yeah, without loss of mass. There would be some energy loss, but whatever. Then you could make like a super dense shell around the sun that was like 10 feet thick. All right. And you could live on the inside of it. Yeah, okay, a shell around the sun that was 10 feet thick at Earth orbit. That was the idea. Okay. Because that way you could live on the inside of it and it's not too hot or too cold.
Yeah.
Okay.
And obviously, the bigger you make it, the thinner the shell has to get.
Yeah.
Because you have a limited amount of material.
Okay.
But there would be no gravity. Because it's an equal...
It'd be pulling you off of the... You'd be pulling you towards the sun.
Right. You'd have to spin the thing, and then there would be all those problems. If you spun it, then you'd have to live at the equatorial area,
right,
in order to have 1G. But
it needs to be ring world.
As you walked towards the North Pole, there would be less and less gravity, and so
that might be useful for certain things.
Right. You could put the industry up there because industry is great in 0G, and but all the atmosphere and stuff would be contained in a ring, basically on the inside at the equatorial area. But you wouldn't be able to see the stars. You'd have to go downstairs.
Yeah.
If it's 10 feet thick, you just go down to the basement, and then you're on the other side, and then you have the night sky. Right. But you also can basically absorb all the energy of the sun.
Oh.
Yeah. Because none of the light escapes. Now you could make it thicker if most of it was lattice.
Holes, if
most of it was lattice work, right? So you had a structure, and then in the lattice work you would install whatever industry, factories, solar panels. And this idea, solar panels would be amazing because it would basically be zero atmosphere from the sun to the panels, and even if we still only had 30%.
Brain expansion.
Which whatever it is that that they're 30% efficient or something like that, then it would be an amazing amount of energy. But if you had gravity generators, then you would just stick those in the place where you want gravity. You don't have to spin it, and then it wouldn't have to be stress.
Yeah.
Anyway, I went through a whole book on like macrostructures is what it was called. I think I don't remember what the book was called, but it was about macrostructures and building gigantic, like using all the mass you have in your solar system to like build cool gigantic things around. And I mean, if you think of a ring world, like we were talking about in the last show. That thing was 1 million miles wide, and then it was the entire orbit.
Yeah.
So, like, the Earth is, you go 30,000 miles or so, and you've come back to where you started, right? Mm-hmm. Roughly, right? Like 30,000?
26,000.
26, yeah, something like that.
Yeah, at the equator.
So imagine something, a ring.
It's different on the
that,
polar.
when if you're standing in the very center of it, you got 500,000 miles to either wall. Okay, and the walls are what hold the atmosphere in. Okay. Now, what other problems would there be on that? If you think about it, because remember that it's thin. It's like think of it as a beaten metal sheet, and then you have to texture it to get landscape. So if you want mountains, you have to make them, and then you cover it in soil. Now, but what happens, geologically speaking, to dirt?
All that stuff erodes down off of the dents.
Right. It flows towards the low areas.
Okay.
So all of your water. Now, we use what do we use with water? Just the top of it, mostly, right? We don't need 9-mile deep oceans.
Yeah.
We only use the surfaces usually. And, you want it to be a little bit deep so you can fish for cool stuff and put nice boats in it. But you don't need hundreds of feet deep or whatever. So you have a bunch of shallow lakes wherever. But all the soil will tend to flow,
and turn them into just.
So
puddles.
how do you solve that problem in the ring world?
You would have to have.
I don't know.
You'd have to have some type
of pumping system.
Yeah,
and so you have to have pipes on the underside of the ring world that move that sediment up to the walls and dump them over the walls.
Okay.
So the walls in the ring world had enormous mountains with the pipes at the top. Uh-huh. So all along the ring, there are these gigantic. I mean, these mountains are miles and miles and miles high because the wall has to be that high to hold in the atmosphere. Right. And
It's just cool.
Giant structures are really cool to think about. Well, then how do you have day and night on a ring?
Well, you had the plates. You talked about that last time.
So closer to the sun, you have a bunch of big flat plates connected with thin cables that you can't see, and you spin those really fast, a lot faster than the ring. So they're constantly passing over. So when you look out across the ring, you see these dark, light squares.
Okay.
That's going to create all kinds of weird turbulence in the atmosphere and everything.
So there is going to be weather And that's going to make water move around, and it's going to move soil. And then you got to have giant pumps that move it up and then dump it onto the mountains, and that stuff will slowly flow back down. I mean, it's really cool stuff.
That is cool.
And then you got to have massive furnaces to heat some of the rocks up and remelt them back into larger, pools of magma that you can dump out.
Yeah.
So they can make giant crusts.
Right. And then there's other physics problems with it.
24,860 miles.
Okay, yeah. There's other physics problems with it. A ring, like a perfectly balanced ring around a star, even if it's spinning, would be unstable. Mm-hmm. It would be able to. It would tend to start doing this. Right. In other words, the stars here, the thing would want to bounce.
Yeah.
That's not good. So you need attitude jets on the walls, facing up and down to keep the thing from.
This is a complicated situation.
Yeah. So you need a big. You need a big area where you can do repairs. Now, what happens if a meteor hits the underside of the ring?
Yeah,
and tears a giant hole in it, and then all the atmosphere starts dumping out.
Ooh.
So you need a giant patching station. And you also need a way for this you also need a really good meteor watching system, and then something that can destroy them while they're coming in.
So there's plenty of jobs.
Yes, a lot of jobs.
Plenty of jobs.
Yeah.
That's cool, though.
Yeah, just all kinds of.
A lot of that was new on me. I'm sitting here.
Yeah, it's cool thought experiments is the idea, the concepts are idea, And so in the ring world system, the ring world itself had a magnetic lattice through the entire ring of superconducting magnets. Okay. And then on the panels that were the day and night things, they had all these cameras that facing outwards. And those watched for, what would be called meteors.
Okay.
Any object that was in danger of hitting the ring. So those cameras would see it. They would talk to systems on the ring, and the ring would start running current through those superconductors that are built into as a lattice work, and it would laze the sun, pull a whole bunch of material off the sun, and then turn it into a laser that would annihilate whatever meteor was coming towards the ring. Oh, wow. So the only time it ever got hit was if the meteor was perfectly behind the ring from the sun the entire way in, because then it couldn't hit it without hitting the ring.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it happened, but it was rare. But there was one part where they're flying across the ring, and they see this one part where there's this giant cone sticking up. And, like at the very bottom, all the soil is just shiny metal pointing towards the star, and there's a hole at the top, and they're like, holy crap. Well, at least that one was big enough to make the hole so far that it stuck out of the atmosphere.
Yeah.
So the air isn't dumping out, but you got this huge
mountain range.
mountain sticking upwards.
Space volcano.
Right. But everything for hundreds of thousands of square miles around it was completely annihilated. All the civilizations there were totally destroyed by a meteor hitting the other side of the ground.
Yeah. Man.
Wow, I wasted a lot of time talking about that.
But that was really cool. That was a first on me for a lot of that.
Yeah, Ring World is a great series.
Yeah, that's cool.
Okay, so the other thing I wanted to talk about real quick before we dive back into this book is about the Discord chat. Just a couple of things about the chat. We're getting more and more people in there. So we try really hard not to talk about politics on the show. We try to completely, almost totally keep politics out of the discussion here, because that's just, I just think that's a good policy. Yep. So all we ask is that anybody in the chat just do the same thing. Just don't talk politics. It is not necessary in there.
Agreed.
There's now that chat. There's plenty of other chats if you want to go talk politics.
Agreed.
Right. So even in the, there's a couple of channels in there. One of them's called Off Tangents, and most people are at least good enough to keep their political stuff in there. But just there's no reason for it. That's all I'm saying. Yeah. And
so some of those bad people that are doing it,
they're not bad.
Do they get? No, I'm joking, but do they get booted out after they do it so many times?
Oh yeah, banned. Banned.
Be careful, people. You don't want to get banned from the snake pit.
Yeah, there's just not. The discussion we have around this podcast and in the Discord is not political. There's no reason.
Exactly.
So don't bring up political figures. Don't just anything that's political. If you have to ask yourself, is this political? Then the answer is yes, and don't post it, right?
And it's not, really, it's nice. We live in a world where it is going on so much. It's nice to tune in to you guys and just not ever have to worry about it.
Yeah, that's
it's a great
that's kind of the idea. Is like,
it's
this
great.
is,
I love it.
we want this to be a learning experience that also has none of that in it, because first of all, it's divisive. And we all want to be able to talk about this stuff without having that go on as well, right?
Yeah, we're trying
I
to build a
know
snake
that
family.
some of the topics get edge towards some of those things, but we do our best on the show to make that as minimal as possible. So all I ask is that try to do that in the chats as well. And the other thing in the chats is, don't be mean to people, right? And I'm not saying anybody is, but if you see somebody being an asshole in the chats, don't be an asshole back. Tell one of the admins. There's a bunch of great admins, including me and Kyle, also Jeff and Matt, and Levi and History Shift, right? So send a private message to one of those guys if somebody is like really being offensive or saying mean stuff. There's no reason to say mean stuff back at them, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
And like, don't say mean stuff to people. Period. Yeah. Don't go in there and say, like, your ideas are dumb or why are you talking about this? Don't do that. Like, if you see somebody talking about politics after you hear me say this, don't go attack them, right? Don't attack them. Talk to the admins. That's all I'm saying.
Good call. Good call.
So from now on, I'm going to shorten this to what Darren on Grimerica says. Be nice in the chats.
Be nice in the chats.
All that stuff I just said is compressed into that little phrase. Be nice in the chats.
I like that.
Grimerica.ca/support.
That's great.
And then Elder, right?
Yeah, we have a couple of new Patreon people. Matt, who I just mentioned, his name is Eldor in the chat. Eldor. The Eldor. So not only is he an admin in the chat, so he helps manage it, he also has joined the Patreon at the 1440 level. So we really appreciate that, buddy. Thank you so much. So he's helping support the show. And there's another one who just that was Chris Galveston from Galveston.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Also became a 1440 patron. So thanks so much to both of you guys. Just wanted to give you shout outs for that.
Much appreciated.
Yeah.
We love ya.
Yep.
Warm and fuzzies.
All right.
That was a long entrance, but let's get into the material.
Nobody cares. It's all good.
Do you want to just take an early break and we'll just go?
Yeah, that's good.
We'll start on the third segment.
Yeah. It's good with me. Take a break.
All right.
Snacks!
Snakes!
Yeah! Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Brothers of the Serpent podcast. What?
I just kept holding it.
Kyle has set the sands of time. So we're going back into our dive into The Gods of Eden by William Bramley. And so last week we were reading through Revelation of St. John. And Kyle noticed that there were some star myth stuff in there. Constellation, it looks like some of the stuff we're talking about is stars, or at least zodiacal symbols. What was this part with the?
Well, I was thinking, some of the symbols we were talking about with Matheson.
Yeah.
The situations that the people that are the symbols that that the constellations represent, the situations that they're in, it just sounded familiar.
Yep. And so I talked to Matheson about it. And so Matheson is of the opinion that the entire Bible is about star myths, that none of it is, that it's all allegory. None of it's talking about real people. So I'm trying to talk to him about, what are these symbols or whatever. And he's basically like, look, all of it is stars, So in his opinion, nothing in the Old Testament is any historical story. None of it is. It's all star myths. So, and he thinks that it's actually been detrimental to the Western world in general, and other religions that have star myths, for them to be historicalized. You know, he's like, look, these aren't real. These aren't telling us. This is a very useful story that gives us a lot of information about human psychology and about the soul and everything. It's talking to us about us, but they're not historical. Mm-hmm. So that's his perspective. And I asked him about, you know, some of these passages we were reading from Revelation, and he's like, yeah, we're looking at Hercules and Ophiuchus, and this is the same story that's told over and over. And these constellations symbolize these different things. Mm-hmm. So I asked him, I was like, what's the throne of God, you know, and what? And he was just like, yeah, these are all star symbols. All of them are. So that's kind of a very different picture than Bramley is. Bramley is sort of taking this as like, what's happening to this guy who's writing these things down.
Yeah.
And Mathis is like, no, this is star myths, period. So, I just don't know what to think about that. I do think that the stars are a figure in all this, and the mythology is clearly there. But does that mean that none of this is history at all? I don't know. I mean, it's a mix of both.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of a mix-up.
Yeah.
A little bit of stars, a little bit of history, throw it in a blender.
Yeah. I asked him, I was like, where?
In a blender.
In a blender, yeah. I asked him, where is all the history then? You know?
Yeah.
Because if you're going to say that none of this is historical, then we've just lost like 4,000 years of history, like of historical tales. And especially if you remove all the other, you know, non-biblical, but still things that people think are historical, you take all those and say these are all star myths as well. Then where are the texts where people were writing down what was actually happening on Earth?
It's probably all mixed up in there together.
He doesn't. Yeah, he was like, I don't know. It's a good question. Where's all the history, bro? So the last thing I read was that it has been pointed out that the experience John described is identical to mystical ritual. And some people believe that Revelation is actually an account of an initiation ceremony typical of many Brotherhood organizations and typical even today. Right. So the question there again, you're going around in a circle here. Like, is it typical today? Well, why is it typical today? It's, you know, the first thing you would say was, well, they're just following ancient traditions.
Right.
But are the ancient traditions following some real tradition, or is this are the ancient traditions actually just pointing us at star myths? And the reason the ones today follow it is because we've lost that part of the story.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Or do they know that and they're just, I don't know. I think it's a mix of both, though. Like, yes, these traditions are pointing at star myths. They do the ritual because it's an ancient ritual.
Yeah.
You know, whether that was happening to John, I don't know.
I tend to believe that the inclusion of the stars into the myths is, and the creation of the rituals, all are to preserve the real knowledge that's contained within.
Yeah.
The esoteric knowledge. So
Yeah.
this is the way I look at it, is like, this is part of the technology of the preservation of information.
Yeah.
So you create a story, you use the stars to be the characters in the story because those aren't changing. And then you tie all of that stuff in, and then you create rituals that people can act out.
Yeah.
That are also pertaining to the story.
Yeah.
And those are going to correlate to our daily lives. You have to have all of these elements
Yeah.
to make that story be preserved.
Right.
That's the idea that I get from it. So yes, I think that they are teaching us something about ourselves. They are connected to the stars. There is hidden knowledge. There's spiritual ideas, philosophy, but there's also a real story about it. Because that's almost, you know, one of the best ways to, I would say, like a real story can already has the power to stick with people.
Yeah.
And people want to tell it because it was real and it was amazing or something, right? So you You then add the esoteric knowledge into the story. Yeah. Then you connect it to the stars, and then you create a ritual for it, and now you've definitely preserved it. You know, there's these different elements of preservation. Right. It's kind of like a fine wine.
So what's happening? Yeah. So what's happening in Revelations? That's what I'm trying to get at is, are we reading the actual accounts of a man who was exposed to these symbols in whatever way? Or is the whole thing, like, in other words, none of this happened to whoever wrote this. He's just couching it in this way. As here I was being shown these things, or was he actually being shown something that he didn't understand? And he was
I think it can be both, because, like, for example, when I'm writing a song in a verse, a specific verse may have a main topic, but then with every line, the words chosen in each line can have a different relevance to something that actually happened to me, something that I was thinking about, wondering about, or it could be relevant to a story that I heard that was moving or something like that. But then there's an overall thing. So, like, what I'm thinking of is the guy saying, I had a vision. That doesn't necessarily mean that in some altered state, he actually saw this crazy stuff. It could be that he witnessed a bunch of different things over a long period of time, and then one day it just became clear to him, like, oh man, this is what this means. I had a vision. And then in the vision, you put all the symbols into it. And maybe he wasn't the one that added esoteric star mythology to it. He could have written down something that he understood, and then later people's also added more elements to it. I don't know.
Yeah, because Bramley's going with the idea that this was a guy who was shown a bunch of things.
Yeah. And it could have been. Yeah.
And his idea is like Bramley is saying, like, John was exposed to a very symbolic, mystical ritual, and it kind of they did it in such a way as to, like, kind of blow his mind.
Yeah.
And they're like, write down everything you see, you know, and then they expose him to this mystical ritual, knowing that he wouldn't really understand it, I guess. Or maybe he did understand it and he wrote it in such a way.
Or they chose him because they thought he might understand enough.
Yeah, like the first layer.
Yeah.
This guy can handle phase 1.
Yeah.
In 1,000 years, we'll get another guy to handle phase 2.
It's just interesting because the way, when you read Revelation, you don't get any kind of John saying, like, so this is what I think was going on. He's just like, here's what I saw.
Yeah.
Right. And maybe that's the style. I don't know.
Yeah, so he may have been a co-conspirator, in other words, because it seems like if you were an organization that was trying to, like, wow somebody and put out certain types of information, you would want to make sure that the information that they wrote down had the information that you wanted them, to write.
Yeah.
True.
Yeah. Okay, so in the above passage from Revelation, we observe that John reacted with strong emotions to what was going on around him. He was especially prone to weeping on relatively little provocation. That's true. Like, he talks about how he would fall to his knees and weep. Right? So is this artistic license? Or did this really happen? These are the questions that happen to me when I look at Revelation. Did he really fall to his knees and weep? If so, why?
That could easily be a colloquialism. I mean, like, it blew my freaking mind, you know, and then in future civilizations will be like, so this guy's head exploded. But he's still alive later.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know. Like, yeah, we could just turn that into a say, dude, you got to check out this movie. Bro, I fell on my knees and wept.
Yeah.
It was so awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, like laughed out loud. Like a lot of people use that, and they didn't.
Right.
In their mind,
they had a little internal chuckle, and they're like, "LOL." Yeah. No, you didn't, bro. Stop lying to me. Yeah. Okay, so it says he seemed unable to distinguish between ritual and apparent reality. This raises questions about his mental state. A careful reading of Revelation indicates that John's mind may have been influenced by drugs administered to him by the creatures. So that's what I'm saying. Bramley is taking it at face value.
Right, yeah. Okay, that's fine.
Yeah. The probable drugging of John is exposed in chapter 10 of Revelation. The author was apparently outdoors again, preparing to memorialize the latest revelations when an angel flew down from the sky holding something in its hand. Quote, "And the voice which I heard from heaven spoke to me again and said, 'Go and take the little scroll which is open in the hand of the angel which stands upon the sea and upon the earth.' And I went to the angel and said to him, 'Give me the little scroll.' And he said to me, 'Take it and eat it up, and it will make your belly bitter, but it will be in your mouth as sweet as honey.' And I took the little scroll out of the angel's hand and ate it, and it was in my mouth sweet as honey. And as I had eaten it in my belly, it was bitter."
Yeah.
And he said to me, "You must preach again before many peoples and nations and tongues and kings." Revelation chapter 10. So I talked to Matheson about this. I was like, "He's drugged, bro." Right? And Matheson's like, "No, this is also Star Myth."
I thought that studies these days showed that whatever's going on in your gut can be connected to your brain, or it's like the gut intelligence or something about the gut.
Yeah, I remember
Yeah.
reading stuff about that.
Yeah.
So maybe it's like it's sweet in your mouth, but it's bitter in your gut because really it's meaning like this is going to be hard to accept. It's going to taste sweet, but what really is going on is going to be
Yeah.
hard to, I don't
Right.
know.
Yeah. I see that as that's a one way of looking at it as an
metaphor.
allegory. Yeah,
Yeah.
metaphor. But then the other idea is like, well, if we take him at face value, the angel gave him a little piece of paper rolled up and said, "Eat this."
Yeah.
And he eats it, and there's drugs in it.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, like you get a little LSD tab. It's on a piece of paper. Mm-hmm. You know, and
Tastes sweet in your mouth.
you take it, and then a little while later, you're like, "Oh,"
Yeah.
and that stuff starts to get weird. Right?
Yeah, maybe you're right.
I'm just saying. I think that's how Bramley's taking it.
Yeah.
Most Christians believe that the little scroll offered to John was an actual document, the contents of which the author magically came to know by eating the scroll. So like osmosis or whatever, or whatever you would call it. You eat it and know it. Our clue that it was probably paper or something else, saturated with a drug, lies in John's testimony that the scroll was sweet to the taste but caused a bitter reaction in the stomach. Interestingly, an almost identical experience had been reported by Ezekiel. Quote, "And when I looked, a hand of an angel was put before me, and a scroll was in it. And he spread it before me, and it had writing inside and out, and there were written lamentations and mourning and woe. Additionally, he said to me, 'Son of man, eat what you are finding. Eat this scroll and go to speak to the house and people of Israel.' So I opened my mouth, and he caused me to eat that scroll. And he said to me, 'Son of man, make your belly eat and fill your bowels with this scroll that I give you.' And then I ate it, and it was in my mouth as sweet as honey. And he said to me, 'Son of man, go, get yourself over to the house of Israel and speak with my words to them.'" Ezekiel chapter 2. So that is very similar. Mm-hmm. Sweet as honey in the mouth, bitter in the belly. Little scroll. What's going on
That's
here?
weird.
And that's Ezekiel's OT, right? Not long before the New Testament, but he's still Old Testament.
Yeah.
Many people mistakenly believe that John actually saw the future historical events he prophesied in Revelation. It has been pointed out by Christian and non-Christian scholars alike that John's visions of the future were simply illustrations drawn on scrolls. This is especially evident in John's vision of the creature with 7 heads and 10 horns. Quote, "And I stood upon the sand of the sea and saw a beast rise up out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and upon his horns 10 crowns, and upon his heads blasphemous names." Revelations 13. The fact that actual words, blasphemous names, were written upon the heads of this creature revealed that John was looking at an illustration with labels, much like an old-fashioned political cartoon. Although the author does not specifically say so, it is likely that many other visions on the scrolls were labeled in a similar fashion. So they're saying, like, they unroll this tapestry in front of him, and he's like, here's what I see. I see a monster with 10 heads, and each head is labeled with blasphemous names. So, there can be no doubt that as literature, the book of Revelation is a colorful, dramatic, and hard-hitting work. As the basis for a religious philosophy, however, it has all the pitfalls of the apocalypses which came before it. As we shall see, the prophecy made in Revelation has been fulfilled at least a half dozen times in world history, complete with global catastrophe followed by second comings. Not once has this brought about 1,000 years of peace and spiritual salvation. All it has done is set the stage for the next catastrophe. Chapter 14. The Plagues of Justinian. As we leave the time of Jesus and enter the AD years, history becomes firmer and personalities come into better focus. Documentation is better. Even so, the same historical patterns we have studied continue undiminished. To those who find what we have looked at thus far completely unbelievable, I can only share that feeling with full empathy. The view of history I am presenting seems to demand an understanding that the factors which lie at the bottom of human turmoil may be extremely bizarre factors, and perhaps that is why they have never been resolved. Okay. After the lifetime of Jesus, the Christian church grew rapidly. In its early years, Christianity attracted a large number of genuine humanitarians who were enthused by the message Jesus had tried to put forth. Early Christian leaders, despite the Essene influence, were able to promote a rather benign religion with many benefits. Jesus had not failed entirely. Early Christians gave people the hope that they could achieve spiritual salvation by acquiring knowledge, by engaging in ethical conduct, by unburdening themselves through confession of wrongdoing, and by making amends for those transgressions that caused a person to suffer guilt. Given the benign character of the early Christian church, it did not need a harsh code of ethics. The severest punishment a person could suffer in most Christian sects at that time was excommunication, i.e., being kicked out. That was considered a very severe punishment, however, equivalent to our modern death penalty, because an individual was considered doomed to eternal spiritual deterioration if he or she was excommunicated. A priest was obliged to do everything he could to appeal to a person's reason before excommunicating him. The primary cause for excommunication was criminal or grossly immoral behavior. For about the first 300 years of its existence, Christianity remained an unofficial religion and was often persecuted. A number of political leaders eventually became converts, and under them, Christianity began to change. The humanitarian foundation created by Jesus eroded as Christianity became more political. The political transformation of Christianity got its first big push in the West Roman Empire with the Christian conversion of its ruler, Constantine the Great. A number of historians believe that Constantine was already leaning in the direction of becoming a Christian because his father was a monotheist. Contemporaries of Constantine have noted, however, that Constantine's true conversion came as the result of a reported vision he had in 312 AD. Several different accounts have been recorded of that vision. According to Socrates, who wrote about it in the 5th century AD, quote, "As he was marching at the head of his troops, a preternatural vision, transcending all description, appeared to him. In fact, at about that time of the day when the sun, having passed the meridian, began to decline towards the west, he saw a pillar of light in the form of a cross on which was inscribed, quote, 'In this conquer,' unquote. The appearance of the sign struck him with amazement, and doubting his own eyes, he asked those around him if they could see what he did, and, as they unanimously declared that they could, the emperor's mind was strengthened by this divine and miraculous apparition. On the following night, while he slept, he saw Christ, who directed him to make a standard, or a flag, according to the pattern he had been shown, and to use it against his enemies as a guarantee of victory. Obedient to the divine command, he had a standard made in the form of a cross, which is preserved in the palace until this day." Unquote. That was Socrates. So that was Socrates saying that was Constantine's vision. That he sees this cross in the sky, and then God is like, put that on a flag and you will conquer your enemies. And we're back to OT again, the Old Testament. Nothing like the stuff Jesus said.
Yeah.
The truth of Constantine's vision is disputed by those who would attribute it to mere legend making. Others might view the aerial cross as an unusual reflection of the setting sun followed by a dream. Constantine was responsible for other significant changes to Christianity. It was he who convened and often attended the Council of Nicaea in 325 AD. At that time, many Christians, such as the Gnostics, strongly resisted efforts by Constantine and others to deify Jesus. In other words, to make him a god. The Gnostics simply saw Jesus as an honest spiritual teacher. The Nicene Council met in large part to put an end to such resistance and to create a divine image of Jesus. With this purpose in mind, the council created the famous Nicene Creed, which made belief in Jesus as the Son of God a cornerstone of the Christian faith. To enforce these often unpopular tenets, Constantine put the power of the state at the disposal of the newly Romanized Christian church. Constantine's reign was notable for another achievement. It marked the beginning of the European Middle Ages. He is credited with laying the foundation for medieval serfdom and feudalism. As in the Hindu caste system, Constantine made most occupations hereditary. He declared that the coloni, a class of tenant farmers, were to be permanently attached to the soil upon which they lived. Constantine's Romanized Christianity, which came to be known as Roman Catholicism, and his oppressive feudalism caused Christianity to move sharply away from the surviving maverick teachings of Jesus into a nearly complete custodial system. As time progressed and official changes to Christian doctrine continued to be made, two new crimes emerged. Heresy, which was speaking out against established dogma, and paganism, which is not adhering to Christianity at all. In the earliest days of the church, Christian leaders felt that people could only be made Christians by appealing to their reason, and that no one could be or should be forced. After Constantine, leaders of the new Roman orthodoxies took an entirely different view. They demanded obedience as a matter of law and belief on the basis of faith alone rather than reason. With those changes came new punishments. No longer was excommunication the severest penalty of the church, although it was still practiced. Physical and economic sanctions were also applied. Many devoted Christians became victimized by the new laws when they would not agree to the new Roman orthodoxies. Those victims correctly saw that the church was moving away from Jesus' true teachings. These new teachings were given a great boost at the end of the 4th century AD by East Roman Emperor Theodosius I. He issued at least 18 laws aimed at punishing those people who rejected the doctrines established by the Nicene Council. He made Christianity the official state religion and closed down many pagan temples by force. He ordered Christian armies to burn down the famous Alexandrian Library, which was a world book depository and center of learning. The library contained priceless historical, scientific, and literary records from all over the world, gathered over a period of 700 years. Although some of the library had already been ravaged by earlier wars, the destruction by Theodosius's army obliterated what had remained. Because most of the documents were one of a kind, a great deal of recorded history and learning was lost.
I really hope that every time that happens in history, it's like, burn the libraries.
That people save stuff?
Yes, that there are some people like, let's go.
Yeah.
And they go in there and they grab some stuff. But it's so sad that all that is lost.
Yeah, I agree. And I do think people try to save it.
Yeah.
But they probably don't always succeed.
Yeah, they probably don't.
You get caught, you get killed, and your stuff gets burned anyway.
Yeah.
A lot of times.
Or you make it out with it, but then
you can't hide it.
all these other things.
Or you hide it in a place and it gets destroyed there by time.
Yeah.
You know, you stash it in the like the underground of the city and just damp and sewage, you know?
Yeah.
So this day and age, if anybody's ever like, let's burn all the libraries, the whole snake force is just going to come together.
Oh, yeah. It would be
We're gonna
really hard
save-
today because we have the printing press for like what?
Burn the internet.
We must burn the internet. It'll happen. Matters continued to worsen. By the middle of the 6th century AD, the death penalty came into use against heretics and pagans. A campaign of genocide was ordered by East Roman Emperor Justinian to more quickly establish the Christian orthodoxies. In Byzantine alone, an estimated 100,000 people were murdered. Under Justinian, the hunting of heretics became a frequent activity, and the practice of burning heretics at the stake began. Justinian also introduced more changes to Christian doctrine. He convened the Second Synod of Constantinople in 553 AD. The synod was neither attended nor apparently sanctioned by the Pope. At that time, in fact, many of the changes to Christian doctrine in the Eastern Roman Empire had not yet reached the papacy, although they eventually would. The Second Synod issued a decree banning the doctrine of past lifetimes or reincarnation, even though this doctrine was important to Jesus. The Synod decreed, quote, "If anyone shall assert the fabulous pre-existence of souls and shall submit to the monstrous doctrine that follows from it, let him be anathema," or excommunicated, unquote.
I think it's papacy.
Papacy?
I could be wrong.
Papacy?
Yeah.
Papacy? Yeah, you're probably
so.
right. Il Papa?
Il Papa.
Papacy? Papacy?
Maybe it is papacy.
In deference to that decree, all but very veiled references to pre-existence were taken out of the Bible. Belief in pre-existence was declared heresy. This suppression was enforced throughout the Western Christian world and in its sciences. The idea of personal pre-existence still remains to a very large degree a Western religious and scientific heresy, which is true. A lot of people in the East, the reincarnation thing is just it's part of their culture.
Yeah.
In the West, nope.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's papacy.
Papacy?
Yeah.
Okay.
Watcher confirms.
All right. Papacy. Il Papa. Christianity was shaped into a powerful institution under the East Roman emperors. True to the pattern of history, Romanized Christianity was another Brotherhood faction that could be counted upon to do battle with other Brotherhood factions, thereby helping to generate nonstop warfare between human beings. The new Orthodox Christianity was placed in opposition to all other religions, including the East Roman mystery schools, which Justinian banned. We have just observed a snowballing of historical events triggered by Constantine's vision. This period marked one of mankind's end-of-world episodes, highlighted by religious visions, cataclysmic genocides, and the creation of a new world social order, promising but not delivering utopia. Another important end-of-the-world element was also present. A massive plague struck, accompanied by reports of unusual aerial phenomena. Between 540 AD and 592 AD, when Justinian was carrying out his Christian reforms, a bubonic plague engulfed the East Roman Empire and spread to Europe. The epidemic began inside Justinian's realm, and so it was named Justinian's Plague. Justinian's Plague was one of the most devastating plagues of history, and many people at the time believed it to be a punishment from God. In fact, the word plague comes from the Latin word for blow or wound. Plague has been nicknamed God's disease, i.e. a blow or wound from God. One reason people thought plague to be from God was the frequent appearance of unusual aerial phenomena in conjunction with outbreaks of the plague. One chronicler of Justinian's plague was the famous historian Gregory of Tours, who documented a number of unusual events from the plague years. Gregory reports that just before Justinian's plague invaded the a region of France in 567 AD, 3 or 4 brilliant lights appeared around the sun, and the heavens appeared to be on fire.
Dude, this is making me think of
Wickramasinghe. This may have been a natural sundog effect. However, other unusual celestial phenomena were also seen in the area. Another historian reported a similar event 23 years later in another part of France. Strange sights were reported in the sky, and the ground was sometimes as brightly illuminated at night as in the day. Yep. Shortly thereafter, a disastrous outbreak of the plague occurred there. Gregory reported a sighting in Rome consisting of an immense dragon, which floated through the city and down to the sea, followed by a severe outbreak of the plague immediately thereafter. Serpents in the sky. Such reports chillingly suggest the unthinkable, that Justinian's plague was caused by biological warfare agents spread by custodial aircraft. It would be a repetition of similar plagues reported in the Bible and ancient Mesopotamian texts. By the time of Justinian's plagues, however, the custodians were, quote-unquote, invisible. They were hidden behind Brotherhood secrecy and veils of religious myth, yet they were apparently no less concerned about keeping their slave race oppressed. We will see a great deal more evidence about UFO activity associated with plagues in the upcoming chapter on the Black Death. According to apocalyptic prophecy, an event like Justinian's plague is supposed to herald the coming of a new Messiah or messenger from God. Sure enough, such a figure did arrive, and his name was Muhammad. He was born during Justinian's reign at a time when the plague was still raging. Proclaimed in adulthood as the new savior, Muhammad became the leader of a new monotheistic apocalyptic religion, Islam. Like Moses and Jesus before him, Muhammad appears to have been a sincere man, but his new religion nevertheless became a faction, which created new religious issues for people to endlessly fight over. Like Moses and Jesus, Muhammad was supported by the corrupted Brotherhood. Break time? It's weird that he shows up right at this plague.
Yeah.
Cool. Papacy. I'll try to remember that. I always think of Il Papa.
Yeah.
All right. Taking a break. Snacks!
Snakes!
For the final segment of the final hour on Brothers of the Serpent podcast in the Tangent Cube with the lovely Laura, the Snake Wife,
Hey,
Snake
hey.
Sister, and continuing on with Gods of Eden. We've been spending a lot of time during the breaks chatting, so this has been a long show. But
Yeah. Lots of break talk.
yeah.
But it's good.
It's useful. This is what happened. A lot of this happened in the earlier episodes too.
Yeah.
When we first started the show, we would have hours of conversation between each segment because we were still working out how to do all this stuff and So this is kind of, in a way, it's going back to a lot of that. It's almost like we're kind of digging through some of these old topics again.
Yeah.
Cool.
And it does require a lot of hashing through because it's just, I don't know. Also these eyes. Now we're like comets and stars, guy, not just aliens. All right. Okay. Chapter 15. Muhammad. Muhammad was born circa 570 AD. As with Jesus, there are gaping holes in the life history of Muhammad, especially in regard to his childhood and early adulthood. To fill in the gaps, some historians hypothesize that Muhammad was an orphan who had been shunted about among relatives during his youth. It is known that at age 25 he married a wealthy widow, and some biographers believe that he worked as a tradesman in her business for the next 15 years, although that is not entirely certain. At age 40, Muhammad suddenly emerged as a religious prophet and the leader of a powerful new religious movement. According to Muhammad's own statements, his religious mission was triggered by an apparition. The vision occurred outside a secluded cave to which Muhammad would frequently retire for prayer and contemplation. The apparition was an angel bearing a message for Muhammad to spread. This was not just any angel, however. It called itself Gabriel, one of the most important of the Christian angels. Muhammad described the meeting in these words. Quote, "The Quran is no other than a revelation revealed to him." Footnote, Muhammad uses the third person him when referring to himself. "One terrible in power taught it to him, endowed with wisdom. With even balance stood he in the highest part of the horizon. Then he came nearer and approached, and was at a distance of 2 bows, or even closer. And he revealed to his servant what he revealed." Unquote. And the Quran repeats this story, quote, "that this is the word of an illustrious messenger, endowed with power, having influence with the Lord of the throne, obeyed there by angels, faithful to his trust, and to your compatriot is not one possessed by jinn." or spirits, for he saw him in the clear horizon, unquote. So I think what he's saying there, or what the Quran is saying there is, he's not possessed, like he actually saw this stuff and was shown it by messengers of God. He wasn't crazy.
Yeah. Possessed by the jinn.
Yeah, the demons. It's the jinn. Muhammad was either semi-conscious or in a trance when the angel Gabriel ordered him to recite and record the message that the angel was about to give him. The angel's command to Muhammad was much like the commands given earlier in history to Ezekiel of the Old Testament and to John of the Book of Revelation by similar custodial personnel. When Muhammad awoke, it seemed to him that the angel's words were, quote, inscribed upon his heart, unquote. This is significant, for it suggests that Muhammad, like Ezekiel and John and perhaps even Constantine, they had been drugged and mentally tampered with so that the message would be more firmly implanted in his mind. I also thought of Saul. Same kind of, he's walking on the road to Damascus and then suddenly there's vision in his eyes and something happens, it changes him forever. But it's the same sort of like he falls to his knees, there's a vision of light, right? Didn't that happen to Saul?
I can't remember.
Road to Damascus. He was an asshole and then he's completely converted by this vision, and it was the scales fell from his eyes or something like that. Wasn't that the story?
I just don't know. I'm not familiar with that story.
Okay, it's the conversion of Saul into Paul, I think. That's how it went.
Watcher.
Yeah, I think you're right, but I don't remember.
It's so
details.
similar to the Constantine one, and then afterwards, the Saul guy becomes... He was, if I'm remembering correctly, he was hunting Christians.
Yeah, like he was a total...
Yeah, and he was a spook, right? And he's hunting them down and everything, and he's on his way to do more of this kind of damage, and then suddenly, bam, light in the sky, and holy crap, and he's totally converted to it, and then he becomes the same kind of asshole, but on their side. And I'm sorry to, that's how, I just was like, he has the same personality and tenacity as he did before, but now he's using all that.
He's got a different mission.
Yeah.
But the apparition part is very similar as well to Joseph Smith.
That's right.
That's
right.
The falling on the knees?
No, it's just the apparition
that
coming down
changes
and
your life and
the light and everything, and then it totally changes him, and then
I'm thinking the falling
it's like,
on your
and then he gets an enormous following because he's,
Yeah.
But I'm thinking the falling on your knees, every time somebody wants you to, submit to me, bow to me.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
I also think of the falling on the knees as like you become weak at the knees, Like if you saw your house burning down, you're just like fall, you just lose the strength in your legs. That's how I always viewed it.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay, Roger's looking at the distance of two bows. This is a good one. Okay.
It is the distance of two arc lengths or bows. I am seeing the Vesica Pisces in the distance of two bows.
Huh.
Oh, that's interesting.
Interesting. Okay. So the message given to Muhammad is a new religion called Islam, which means surrender. Followers must surrender to God. Members of Muhammad's faith are therefore called Muslims, which comes from the word Muslim, or one who submits. Islam was one more custodial religion designed to instill abject obedience in humans. The supreme being of the Islam faith is named Allah, who was said by Muhammad to be the same God as the Jewish and Christian Jehovah. Two key themes of the Quran are its day of judgment prophecy and its fire and brimstone depiction of hell. Muhammad honored Moses and Jesus as Allah's two previous messengers and proclaimed Islam to be the third and final revelation from God. It was therefore the duty of all Jews and Christians to convert to Islam. Hebrews and Christians tended to be less than cooperative with Muhammad's demand. After all, they had been warned in their own apocalyptic writings about the dangers of false prophets. The result has been some of the bloodiest fighting in world history. Like so many custodial religions before it, Islam did not allow people the luxury of choosing whether or not to become adherents. Muhammad embarked on a program of conquest to make it clear which way the choice was to go. Using the tactics of a general, the divinely inspired Muhammad raised an army and set off to convert unfaithful ones, or infidels, to his faith. Muhammad's apocalyptic army cut a wide and bloody swath through most of the Middle East, including most important including important Christian centers. The militant Muslim empire eventually stretched as far east as India, where elements of Islam were incorporated into the Hindu religion. Untold lives were lost during the Islamic conquests because the Islamic armies were prone to commit fearsome genocides as part of their mission to bring utopia to mankind. To most infidel Christians, Muslims were nothing more than savage heathens or non-believers. This set up an inevitable conflict into which millions of people would be dragged. 500 years after the death of Muhammad, the Christian world launched a coordinated military effort to force the Muslims out of the Holy Land, and that effort is known as the Crusades.
Wow.
God. The Christian Crusades to free Palestine from the Muslims took place between 1099 and 1270 AD. Skirmishes and minor battles between Christians and Muslims had broken out beforehand, but it was a call to arms by Pope Urban II in 1095 that finally turned those skirmishes into an organized war effort involving nearly every Christian ruler of Europe. Hundreds of thousands of Christians enlisted in the Crusades after being promised religious blessings, fiefdoms, and spoils of conquest. Volunteers came from nearly every social class. For many serfs and peasants, the call to arms represented a way to escape feudal lords and perhaps return as wealthy heroes. The Crusades got off to a good but bloody start. The Christians captured Jerusalem in the summer of 1099. Although the knights and peasants who marched under Christian banners were extolled to practice high virtues and chivalry, they frequently degenerated into butchery and other acts of viciousness. When the Crusaders took Jerusalem in 1099, they murdered many of the non-Christian survivors in a slaughter that claimed the lives of more than 10,000 victims. The Crusades had another important effect on Europe. Several decades before the launching of the First Crusades, Pope Gregory VII had attempted to put the Roman Catholic Church under greater centralized control. Prior to Gregory's effort, the Catholic Church in Europe was a loosely knit organization run primarily by non-clergy, the type of organization envisioned by Christianity's earliest founders. After Pope Urban II ascended and rallied all good Christians to fight the unholy Muslims, Christian princes and supporters began pledging allegiance directly to the Pope, thereby hastening the centralization effort attempted earlier by Pope Gregory VII. The power of the Roman papacy, is that right? Papacy increased as the holy wars dragged on and growing numbers of people proclaimed their papal loyalty. Behind the Crusades lay the Brotherhood. The Christian Crusaders were led primarily by two powerful knight organizations with intimate Brotherhood ties: the Knights Hospitaller and the Knights of the Temple, or the Templars. Now, we've talked a lot about I was going through this Templar stuff in here, and I'm just like, well, I don't think you dug deeply enough into this Templar thing, bro. That's what I was thinking about, thinking of Bramley. I was like, I'm not sure. Well, anyway. But he does with the Knights of St. John is interesting. The Knights Hospitaller were so named because they operated a hospital in Jerusalem to help pilgrims in distress. The Hospitallers began operations in the year 1048 as a charitable order. Their purpose was aid and comfort. When the first Crusaders successfully captured the Holy City, the Hospitallers began to receive generous financial support from the wealthier Crusaders. In the year 1118, 70 years after the founding, the Knights Hospitaller underwent a change of leadership and purpose. They were made into a military order dedicated to fighting the Muslims who were continually trying to recapture Jerusalem. With this change of purpose came a change in name. The Hospitallers were variously called the, quote, Order of Knights Hospitaller of St. John, or, quote, Knights of St. John of Jerusalem, or simply Knights of St. John. The Hospitallers had named themselves after John, the son of the King of Cyprus. John had gone to Jerusalem to aid Christian pilgrims and knights. Something about Cyprus there, too. Sorry, I just got distracted there for a minute. There's a connection there of an older one with Cyprus. I just can't remember what it is. Okay, so there is some doubt as to whether the Hospitallers were founded as a Brotherhood organization. They reportedly did not function as one at the outset. However, they soon became affiliated with the Brotherhood network by adopting Brotherhood traditions and titles. They became ruled by a Grand Master and developed secret rites and rituals. By 1119, 1 year after the Hospitallers had become a fighting order, the Templar Knights were in existence. They originally called themselves the Order of the Poor Knights of Christ because they took solemn vows of poverty. Their name was later changed to Knights of the Temple, after they were housed near the site where Solomon's Temple had once stood. Although the Templars and Hospitallers had a common enemy in the Muslims, these two Christian organizations became bitter rivals. The Templar Knights began their existence as a branch of the Brotherhood. They practiced a deep mystical tradition and used many Brotherhood titles, notably Grand Master. Like the Hospitaller Knights, the Templars received large sums of money from well-to-do Christian crusaders, and they thereby became enormously wealthy and were able to transform themselves into an international banking house during the 12th and 13th centuries. They loaned large sums of money to European kings, princes, merchants, and to at least one Muslim ruler. Most of the Templars' riches were stored in strong rooms in their Paris and London temples, causing those cities to become leading financial centers. After the fall of Jerusalem and the final victory of the Muslims in 1291, the fortunes of both knightly orders changed. The Knights of St. John were forced to flee the Holy Land. They took up residence on a succession of islands during the ensuing centuries. With the changes of location came changes in name. They became the Knights of Rhodes after moving to the island of Rhodes. Then they were the Knights of Malta when they moved to that island. And while on Malta, the Knights became a major military and naval power in the Mediterranean until their defeat in 1789. That's a long time. They were the Knights of Malta from 1291 till 1789. That's a long time.
That is
On Malta.
Yeah.
How do they get these places that have weird
All
ancient
these ancient,
stuff?
I know, and then they live in them.
I know.
And that's why, the Maltese cross is a version of the equal arm cross, but it has sort of like flares.
Flared ends, yeah.
Oh.
Maltese falcon. You have all these. This is where the Maltese stuff comes into play in these secret societies, because the Knights of St. John were on Malta for so long.
Aren't there dogs like Maltipoos or Maltese dogs too?
Probably.
I feel like I've heard of that.
Watcher wants to know, what were the years? 1290 something to
1291. Well, they left Jerusalem when the Muslims got Jerusalem back in 1291. They were on Rhodes, and then they ended up on Malta until 1789. They were defeated by Napoleon.
wow.
Okay. After enjoying temporary protection under Russian Emperor Paul I, the Knights of Malta had their headquarters moved to Rome in 1834 by Pope Leo XIII. Today they are known as the Sovereign and Military Order of Malta and have the unusual distinction of being the world's smallest nation. Located in a walled enclave in central Rome, the Sovereign and Military Order of Malta still retains its status as a sovereign state, although new Grand Masters of the Order must be approved by the Pope. They run hospitals, clinics, and leper colonies throughout the world. They also give active assistance to anti-communist causes, and it is surprisingly influential in political, business, and intelligence circles today, despite its small size. So he's got a footnote here. Recent American members of the Sovereign and Military Order of Malta have included the late William Casey, which was an American CIA director, Lee Iacocca, chairman of the Chrysler Corporation, Alexander Haig, former U.S. Secretary of State, and William A. Schreier, president of Merrill Lynch. These are all Knights of Malta.
And they're the ones that created the huge
crazy.
banking institution that you
No, those are the Templars.
Okay.
The Templar Knights did not fare as well as the Hospitallers after the Crusades. They were forced to flee with the Hospitallers to the island of Cyprus. Maybe that's where I'm thinking. I don't know. Whereupon the Templars split up and returned to their many Templar houses or preceptories in Europe. The Templars came under heavy criticism for their failure to save the Holy Land, and rumors circulated that they engaged in heresy and immorality. By 1307, the Templar controversy had become so strong that Philip IV, the Fair of France, the Fair, of course, ordered the arrest of all Templars within his dominion and used torture to extract confessions. 5 years later, the Pope dissolved the Templar order by decree. Many Templars were executed, including the Grand Master Jacques de Molay, who was publicly burned at the stake on March 11th, 1314, in front of the Cathedral of Notre Dame in Paris. Nearly all Templar properties were confiscated and turned over to the Hospitaller Knights. Okay. The long and intense rivalry between the Hospitallers and Templars had finally come to an end. The Hospitallers emerged as the victors. The victory could not have occurred at a more fortuitous time, for there had been serious discussion within papal circles about merging the two orders, a plan which would have been completely unacceptable to both of them. Despite the downfall of the Templars, the organization managed to survive. According to Freemasonic historian Albert Mackey, the Knights Templar were given a home in Portugal by King Denis after their banishment from the rest of Catholic Europe. In Portugal, the Templars were granted their usual rights and privileges. They wore the same costumes. They were governed by the same rules they had before. The decree which re-established the Templars in Portugal stated that they were in that country to be rehabilitated. Pope Clement V approved the rehabilitation plan and issued a bull, an official proclamation, commanding that the Templars change their name to the Knights of Christ.
That's where I heard it. A papal bull.
Yeah, papal bull.
Papal bull.
The Templars, or Knights of Christ, also changed the cross on their uniform from the 8-pointed Maltese cross to the official Latin cross. The Templars became quite powerful in their new home. In 1420, King John I gave the Knights of Christ control of Portuguese possessions in the Indies. Remember, this is when the Knights of Christ start looking for like the source of the Nile.
Yeah.
And they're looking for the Ark of the Covenant.
Sure. We'll change our name for you, buddy.
Yeah, no problem. But
it says they gave the Hospitallers almost all of their possessions.
Right. Yeah.
They still had the Shamir.
Right. That's right. Subsequent Portuguese monarchs expanded the Knights' proprietorship to any new countries which the Knights might discover. Think about that. Like, you just sail up, it's yours. You know, not our countries, not Portugal's, belongs to your organization. You just got to sail up to it. The Knights of Christ became so powerful, reports Albert Mackey, that several Portuguese kings felt compelled to curtail their influence by taking over the Grand Master position themselves. There you go. Can't beat them, join them. The Knights of Christ survived under Portuguese sponsorship until well into the 18th century, at which time the Templar name reemerged and took on renewed importance in the stormy political affairs of Europe, as we shall see later. There was a third Christian knight organization during the Crusades worth mentioning, the Teutonic Knights. The Teutonic Knights were originally called the Order of the Knights of the Hospital of St. Mary of the Teutons of Jerusalem.
What a name. I
know. I can't. I don't know these names. The Order of the Knights of the Hospital of St. Mary of the Teutons of Jerusalem. Come on, guy. Come on with a better name. Like the Hospitallers, the Teutonic Knights started as a charitable order. They operated a hospital in Jerusalem to aid Christians making pilgrimages to the Holy Land. What is the deal with that? You know?
I don't know.
The pilgrimage
something
to the Holy
weird
That's
about
what the
that.
Templars set out
They're
to
all
do
like,
originally.
yeah, we're helping pilgrims. And we're going to set up buildings and hospitals, but that's what we're doing. We're just here to make sure that these people can come to their pilgrimages to see the Christian holy sites.
Yeah, it was sort of the precursor to the nonprofit, right?
Yeah.
It's like, this is how we get government grants, guys.
So they operated a hospital in Jerusalem. Yeah, okay. In March 1198, the Teutonic Knights were given the rank of an order of knights, which made them into a fighting order. Like the Templars, the Teutonic Knights lived a semi-monastic lifestyle, practiced initiation rites, and were ruled by a Grand Master. The Teutonic Knights permitted only Teutons, which are Germans, to become members. They also feuded a great deal with the Hospitallers and the Templars.
First, we shall set up a hospital, and then we shall hurt people. It will make us lots of money.
Yeah. This is a great...
It's a great business plan.
Yeah, it's a great business plan. Run a hospital and stab people. Have you been stabbed? Don't worry, I have a hospital.
It's kind of like the Machiavelli.
Yeah, it's Machiavellian. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
During the Crusades, the Brotherhood military organizations were valiantly leading Christian armies to fight the Muslims. Other groups in the Brotherhood network were rallying Muslims to battle the Christians. Of the several Brotherhood branches promoting the cause of Islam, one is of particular interest to us, the sect of the Assassins. Muhammad died in 1632 AD. A struggle immediately ensued over who was to become his successor. This caused the Islamic religion to break apart into competing sects, each having its own ideas about who was to succeed Muhammad. One such Islamic faction was the Shia sect, which adhered to a strong end-of-the-world tradition. Shiites believed in the millennium, a day of judgment, followed by 1,000 years of peace and spiritual salvation. Eventually, the Shia sect split itself apart. One faction to emerge from the Shia split was the Ismaili sect, which gave birth to the Assassins.
So Ishmael is the name of Abraham's first son.
Right. So it's Ismaili, which I think is Ismaili or Ishmaeli is probably, I don't know how to pronounce it, but it's close.
Know.
Yeah. The Ismailians broke away from the other Shiites in the 8th century. That sect was a Brotherhood secret society with a lodge system similar to Freemasonry and to other Brotherhood organizations. The Ismaili Grand Lodge was situated in Cairo, where it practiced step-by-step initiations with all the attendant symbols and mysteries. Led by a Grand Master, they promulgated a very strong apocalyptic message, complete with the promise of a coming Messiah. One Ismaili Lodge member was a man named Hassan-e-Saba. Mr. Saba's mystical conversion came about as the result of a, quote, severe and dangerous illness, unquote, during which he believed that God had purged him and had given him a spiritual rebirth. In 1078, at the Grand Lodge in Cairo, Mr. Saba asked the Ismaili Caliph for permission to spread the Ismaili gospel in Persia. And there's a footnote here. A caliph is a successor to Muhammad. The title, Caliph, was given to those Muslim heads of state who claimed to be a successor to Muhammad. I guess that's what the word means, the Caliph.
Why are you're saying Muslim? Is it?
It's spelled that way in here, M-O, as opposed to Muslim, which is the word submit. He is spelling it Muslim, which is, I don't know.
Okay. Yeah, that's what
I'm trying to remember to say Muslim because that's what people say now, but Muslim was how it was pronounced for a long time. I don't know.
Hey, you need to say it how it is in the books.
Muslim.
That's what I think.
Like he made a difference between the title of Muslim, which was based on the word Muslim. Mm-hmm. That's what he was saying. Right. So that's why he's calling them Muslims. I don't know.
Yeah, I was just checking.
Yeah. But you can tell how my reading brain takes over from what I would actually say. You know, I see M-O and I say Muslim. I don't know, even though I know that's not how we say it now. I don't know.
Oh, we don't say it that way even when it's spelled that way?
No, what I mean is I don't know. What I mean is this is why I mispronounce words, because I see it spelled like that and I say it like that is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Even though I know it's probably supposed to be Muslim. I see Muslim and that's how I say it.
That's fine.
What was the other word you were saying? Caliph?
Caliph.
Yeah, so like the
caliphate.
Yeah, okay.
The caliphate is the seat of that guy.
Okay.
Yeah. The Assassins are usually referred to as a religious sect. They were more accurately a secret society. According to Masonic historian Albert Mackey, the Assassins adopted an organizational structure of the Ismailians. The Assassins practiced step-by-step initiations and possessed a secret mystical doctrine. Mr. McKee adds that the assassins appear to have practiced 3 of the very same fraternal degrees used in Freemasonry today: apprentice, fellow, and master. The assassins had a religious code similar to the Hospitaller and Teutonic Knights. They were an integral part of the Brotherhood network. A distinguishing feature of the assassin organization was its use of drugs, primarily hashish, for mystical and other purposes. In fact, the word assassin comes from the word hashishin, which means users of hashish. The assassins and several other Brotherhood groups in history extolled the virtues of mind-altering pharmaceuticals as a way to achieve mystical enlightenment. The assassins were also a fighting organization with an army. Grand Master Sabah chose a fortress located high in the northern mountains of Iran for the headquarters of his new group. This assassin fortress was known as Alamut, which means eagle's teaching or eagle's nest. The assassins became a formidable military and political power in the region and eventually controlled other fortresses in Persia and in Syria. They feuded with other Muslim organizations and fought against the Knights Templar and other Christian armies during the Crusades. So they're fighting everybody, right?
Yeah.
All the Christian knights are all fighting each other,
Yeah.
and all the Muslims. And the Muslims are all fighting each other, and all the Christians. It's just like, you're just like, what is going on?
Yeah. Can't we just all get along?
Yeah. To help win its feuds and wars, the assassins developed the deadly tool for which they became famous and feared, the tool of the quote-unquote lone assassin. Right? They're never alone, but they act that way, and so they get to be treated that way by the whole civilization. But everybody knows that they're part of an enormous organization, you know?
Yeah.
It's an
effective tool.
Yeah.
Okay.
Still used today.
Yes. Most people today are painfully aware of the phenomenon of the so-called lone assassin. This is usually a young man in his 20s or 30s who is driven by crazed delusions and who displays little or no concern for his own safety as he murders an important leader in broad daylight, in public, and in front of witnesses. The killing has tremendous shock value, and it can greatly affect the political direction of a nation. Many people believe that these so-called lone assassins are products of our modern age. It is quite amusing to read ponderous psychiatric tomes to that effect. In truth, the lone assassin has been a political institution for over 700 years, if not longer. 700 years ago, however, no pretense was made that the lone assassin acted alone, as is done today. Back then, the lone assassin was known to be an effective and terrifying tool of political and social control. It was a technique used by the assassin organization to win its wars, increase its political influence, destroy its enemies, and enlarge its coffers. How did the assassin sect get young men to commit the murders? It is not easy to make people kill others, especially when the murderer is likely to be caught and slain himself. The assassin organization had an effective method for overcoming this natural resistance and programming young men to kill. One of the earliest people to describe the assassin programming technique was Marco Polo, the famous European traveler of the 13th century who wrote a best-selling book about his journeys. Although Mr. Polo was accused by a few people in his own time of fabricating the stories, subsequent investigation has verified nearly everything he described in his famous book. And as an aside, one of my favorite parts about what Marco Polo wrote was that he was like, there's a whole bunch of other stuff that I saw that I didn't put in this book because no one would have believed me. Right? And like even the stuff that he put in there, people were like, come on, you're making all that up. But of course, it's all been verified. He's just going to far-flung cultures and seeing the stuff they do. And then he brings that knowledge back to the Western civilizations. They're like, people don't do that. And of course they did. So I always wonder, like, what else did he see that he didn't put in the book that he thought no one would believe him, you know?
Yeah.
It's like, I didn't put the stuff in the book because no one would have believed me.
What's
That's
the
cool.
Dude, this is really interesting
Yeah.
stuff. Man. Wow.
Also, I'm sure I'm not the only one thinking this about Marco Polo, but what's the deal with the game we all played when we were children?
In the pool.
Marco Polo.
Yeah.
Marco, what is that about? I mean, I played it as a kid, but I have
The
no clue.
Seeker. Marco Polo was a seeker.
So,
So you're using his name and you're playing a seeking game.
okay. Well, that answers that.
Yeah,
Keep going.
I'm pretty sure that's what it is.
That's a pretty good guess.
Okay.
Well, I mean, this is it, right?
Yeah.
I was gonna end on like what we'll go into next show is the Marco Polo stuff, and so
Okay. And I'm going to go research that childhood game.
Man, the assassins. God, this is just like.
yeah, and Marco Polo is one of the that's what he's saying is like one of the best sources for what the early Assassin Brotherhood was doing, because he actually befriended some of them and was brought up into the fortress of Alamut and like, saw inside their brotherhood. So.
Okay.
It's just crazy to think about, all this stuff with like the Kennedy assassination or
the lone
John
assassin.
Wilkes Booth or whatever. All these, and it's like, this is actually, it's
Still
always
happening.
like, oh, the lone gunman.
It's the lone wolf.
Yeah.
No.
And
Wolves,
so
it's weird because you're like, wolves are part of a pack.
Yeah.
Why do you call them lone wolves?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's interesting to think that like, okay, so is all of this coverage and all of
It's designed
to be that way. It's like, let's talk about this person as though they're alone,
right?
Because we're really concealing the fact that this is an organization.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Because of course those kinds of organizations would run the media too, right? It's what you think. You're like, if you're going to be that powerful, of course you're going to want the media part of your.
You got to have the media.
Yeah.
Wow. Very cool stuff.
Very cool.
Man, I've forgotten all that about that part of the book. Like I don't remember that part.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And we still haven't gotten to the Black Death, which is the.
Yeah.
It starts to
Black
get serious.
Death. Whoa,
Starts to get
okay.
serious. The Black Death.
All right. I'm looking forward to the Black Death.
We hit the Justinian plague, where she was like, there was stuff in the sky.
Some weird stuff, yeah.
Right, but it's really the Black Death.
Okay.
Anything else? Any other thoughts before we quit?
You were right about Paul and Saul on the road to Damascus. And all
okay.
that, yeah.
That's right. He was blinded.
Yeah.
That's what it was.
He went blind for days, and then finally he was like, I can see!
And the scales fall from his eyes, or whatever the symbolism was. Yeah.
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 Yep. After he was blinded, he used to see.
Right.
Cosmo joke.
Cosmo joke. All right, you guys can get a hold of us, Brothers of the Serpent at gmail.com. Go to the website, brothersoftheserpent.com. Check out the encyclopedia, the glossary, the snakeskins, which is our merchandise store. And help us out by joining the pyramid scheme. Send us straight to pyramids. You can either do that by the Patreon or send one-time donations through PayPal. And thanks so much to everybody who has been doing that. I've noticed a lot of people joining the Patreon, which is very gratifying and also surprising in these weird times.
Yeah.
It always surprises me, and so thanks so much to everybody that has done that. And give us reviews wherever you can, but especially in the iTunes store. If you go to Apple Podcasts and give us reviews there, that really helps to spread the show. It helps a lot. So if you can't donate, do that, please. Go in there. 5 stars. That's all I want. 5 stars.
I gave somebody 5 stars in the Apple podcast today.
And
Night
giving us
Watcher.
5 stars?
You want to know who it was?
Who?
Mike and Maurice.
Oh, good.
All right.
They totally deserve it.
I really liked the DMT episode I listened to today. I gave him 5 stars, wrote it up.
Have you given us
Cool.
5 stars? Hey! Whoa!
I don't know if I've ever even written. Yeah, I need to go look at that.
Wow.
I don't think I've done that before. I'll go.
You
do
hear
it.
this, folks?
I'll go do it.
Go do it.
I'm gonna go do it tonight
Yeah, this is
on
just,
my birthday.
Hey, like people don't think about it. It's totally understandable.
Right.
But it really helps.
It does help
really
a lot.
helps
Yeah.
And just like, seriously, a huge thank you to everybody who has done something for the podcast.
Yeah.
You don't have to, obviously.
Obviously
We're
not.
giving you stuff for free.
Yeah.
We love doing it.
Yeah.
It's a great thing. So every time somebody does something, even sending the emails but all of that is just
everything
awesome.
everything
Sharing
that
the
all of
shows.
you do is people who send emails. The emails are awesome. We get tons of show content out of the emails, right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
And we get to talk with all of you. If you do the reviews, if you're in the Patreon, however you support the show. We just got these banners. Holy crap. Stickers.
know.
I just can't. We just can't. There are no words to say how much we appreciate you guys. And so, but still, 5 stars. Motherfuckers.
And I'm enjoying becoming part of the family more and more. Every time we do an episode, I'll kind of get like an extra Twitter follower here.
Oh, great.
And I'm like, oh, somebody else. And I go look, and I'm like,
Yep.
okay. And then I follow them back.
That's what happens. You go into the snake pit and the snake
Yes.
den, and suddenly
Yes, I get curled up
getting
in all
coiled
the
up.
snakes. Yeah. I can't breathe, but I love it.
Lots of love in the community. Don't bring a whip into the snake pit.
That's right.
Indiana Jones is not allowed in there.
That's right.
Don't talk politics. Nice in the chats.
Stay nice in the chats. Join the Facebook group run by Jordan. Join the Discord chat. The Snake Pit, that's what we've been talking about. Staying nice in the chats, guys. Check out the Library of the Serpent. It has all kinds of books, papers, and everything that we've been talking, the stuff that we reference on the show. And also a list of places where you can go to buy the books that aren't available in the public domain. That's run by Jeff, who also runs the Discord. So thanks very much to him, and also all the other admins in the Discord, like we mentioned before, History Shift, which is Brandon, Matt, and Levi, and I know I'm forgetting some. Sorry. Lewis, Ryan. So History Shift, you can find him on YouTube and on Twitter. He makes all of our YouTube videos. So if you're listening to this on YouTube, this is his work. And also if you're listening to this on YouTube, check out the RSS feed, guy. We have a podcast. That's what it's for. I just wonder how many of the YouTube people who watch it on YouTube, how many of them also have the podcast, or is it just, are they totally separate? I wish I had a way to figure that out.
You're either with YouTube or you're not.
Like if you're on YouTube, would you prefer to just get it on your phone as an audio file and listen to it, or do you want to sit there and watch it on YouTube somehow? That's what I'm wondering.
Chase. Isn't Chase a YouTube watcher?
Yeah, but he listens to the podcast.
Oh, he does?
He listens to it.
Oh, okay.
As in, he that goes to the website. I don't know how he does it, but he doesn't do it on YouTube, I don't think. But anyway, thanks very much to History Shift, who does make all the YouTube videos, which does make it available to a lot of people who don't do RSS feeds.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
I also want to say a special thanks to Commander Frank.
Yes.
And, good vibes in these troubling times, buddy.
That's right. Very good vibes. So, Pod Doodles, he takes a bunch of our podcasts and turns them into doodles you can watch. So follow him on Twitter and find him on YouTube. Cosmographia, which is a podcast we do with Randall Carlson. Check out our subreddit, r/Brothers of the Serpent. Give us updates. And let's see. Thanks to Where Did the Road Go? Uncharted X, Mike and Maurice's Mind Escape, like Laura said.
Yes.
She found that DMT. She loved the DMT episode. They put out a lot of good stuff. The C Word, which has finished their pyramid series, I think, and now they're going into something else. Man, I can't remember what it is, but yeah, they've got a 2-part thing on the pyramid, which is really good. Also, Grimerica, Conspiranormal, and the Cosmic Tusk. Thank you guys so much. Thank all of you listeners.
We love you.
Always have.
Always will.
Good night, Adamu.
Get back to work.